Karen Weather, please, for the prayer.
O God our Father, we pray for this council, its members and officers. As we approach Christmas, may we reflect that the teaching and principles of Christianity form the basis of the governance of this country. That the ideas of service, integrity, justice, accountability, and the rights of people were given to us in Magna Carta, the document written by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Stephen Langton, and presented to the King and Barons. May we value those things today and continue to draw on God's strength in our daily lives. We pray also we may all have a time of refreshment and peace this Christmas. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Good evening, everybody. So, could I sign the minutes? Apology of absence.
Apology received Chairman from Councillors Kelly Clark, Nick Bunting and Sarah Peck and Mark Wesley.
Declaration of member interest. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I know we've got Reach for Health on the agenda again tonight, so I'm a member of Reach for Health and use that facility.
Thank you. Any other member interest? And if during the meeting you suddenly realize we have something prepared, please do not forget to do so. Chairman announcement. I will be very, very brief. You will receive or have tomorrow all what I did in the last month or two. And tonight, if you will allow me, after we conclude the meeting, I would like to pose a Christmas raffle, so like that everybody knows in advance who has won the turkey or who has won other good things, and we will do that when we close the meeting. Also, I will in December this month, I am going to do a number of health service, and for the people of Daventry, at the Holy Cross, on the Sunday the 16th at 17, there is a carol service of the lessons for carols. Thank you so much. Now, question on the council procedure, room number 10 and 11. Question from the member of the public. Question from Colin Cole to Councillor Chris Miller. Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for allowing me to speak on your meeting in this first week of Advent in our Christmas calendar, which hopefully will bring much light into our world. Councillor Miller, I'm somewhat confused and alarmed by the mixed messages that are appearing in the media with your name attached. I appreciate that one may not believe all that is written, but there is a feeling of deja vu in the statements. The first being the need of an additional 100,000 houses within West Northants area after Unitary. I appreciate there is a bigger picture with additional infrastructure, but I seem to remember going down this road some 12, 14 years ago. The catchphrase then was, "We should ride the tiger." However, we're still waiting for the original to happen. Again, I appreciate the procrastination of developers. The latest Barretts, and I repeat Barretts, in bringing forward a planning application for the North East Zoo. I strongly suspect this will continue until after Unitary is settled, when Daventry will again become an overspilled town, this time from Northampton. Until this development goes ahead, Daventry will not have the footfall you require to make the latest proposal in cinema, retail, restaurants viable, but more important, sustainable. You have in recent weeks, again through the media, suggested that Unitary will not happen as scheduled. As this is no doubt, or I beg your pardon, as this will no doubt affect the above statements, I would assume that the elections will go ahead next year. Would you please clarify, will the district elections go ahead? Thank you, Councillor Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank Mr. Paul for his, first of all, his observations, which are noted. And secondly, to answer his question, on Thursday the 29th of November, the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government launched this consultation on the proposals for the local government reorganisation in Northamptonshire. This is something all the leaders of the boroughs and the county have been lobbying very hard on, because we realised the timetable was slipping. The consultation closes on the 25th of January 2019. This would fit a timetable that would see 2 new unitary councils in place in spring 2020, subject to parliamentary time being found. And as we all know, parliamentary time at the moment is focused on one particular issue, a lot of it, and that may continue for however long. Let's see what happens next Tuesday. The Secretary of State also announced that it intends to lay an order before Parliament to postpone the district and parish elections scheduled for May 2019 until May 2020. It is anticipated that the order will be laid this month. That's obviously anticipated. We have to see what happens on the national stage. So that's the situation. We have made progress. We have to recognise we're in a much bigger picture at the moment as far as the government's concerned. The other thing I want to say is that the Rishi Sunak, Minister for Local Government, did write to all, or wrote to me, but wrote to all the leaders. We sent a letter which all members will have a copy of. I sent it round to all members, asking for the elections to be postponed, 2019 elections. And he said, obviously at the moment he hasn't made the decision about the unitary, so I'll just read out that letter for those members who haven't seen it, or members of the public who don't know. He said, "I confirm the Secretary of State has decided as soon as practicable to make and lay before Parliament an order under the Local Government Act 2000 to postpone district and parish elections in Northamptonshire, due to be held in May 2019 until May 2020. In making this decision, the Secretary of State has carefully considered the representations in the letter, and that letter is from all 8 council leaders, of the 26th of October 2018, and all other relevant information available to him. Whilst he's not yet reached any decision on whether or not to implement the unitary proposal submitted to him by Northamptonshire councils, he's concluded that in all the circumstances it would be appropriate now to postpone the 2019 elections in Northamptonshire." So just to confirm the current position, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Question from James Nichols to Councillor Chris Miller.
Thank you, Chair. As you'll be aware, leaders of Labour groups in the county have written a joint letter to the Secretary of State expressing in some detail their concern with the funding of local government in Northamptonshire. I expect that many of the concerns raised in the letter are ones which Conservative group leaders are also raising with the Secretary of State, including the need for government support for transition costs, permission for NCC to use seats to fund its deficit, and a general increase in government support to allow all councils to provide statutory services to an adequate standard. There are 2 additional requests which the Labour group leaders have made: that there should be a public inquiry into what went wrong in Northamptonshire's finances so that lessons can be learnt and mistakes avoided in the future, and that the costs of the commissioners, estimated in budget papers to be around £457,000, should be met by central government, which appointed the commissioners and to which they report. I would be grateful if the leader of the council could tell us if he is prepared to support these measures.
Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Mr. Nichols for his question, or questions, maybe, as the case may be. First of all, I want to say that all the leaders, including the Corby candidate, or the Corby leader, who's a Labour leader, I've been working, trying to influence the government in ensuring that our for us in our bid for unitary are met as far as possible. And those four asked for around transitional funding during the transitional period between where we are now and setting up the two unitaries. Longer term transformation of public services in Northamptonshire, which will involve the National Health Service and the CCG and local health bodies. Also in terms of efficiency savings, which obviously we're all trying to make anyway. And I just want to say that and obviously, as you've seen recently in the announcement from the County Council, the government have actually agreed up to £70 million of capital receipts to be fund its deficit as opposed to the normal means. So therefore that's already happening, which has been very helpful for the county. And puts the County Council on a level basis now to actually move forward and hopefully can move forward with some balanced budgets. Coming back to your additional requests, and that should help maintain statutory services such as libraries, and we've seen some news on that recently. The two additional requests you actually say, well, first of all, I have to say that the public inquiry into what went wrong has already been carried out to a degree by Max Callan report, and the commissioners are in there, and obviously the commissioners are also uncovering lots of stuff that went wrong, and no doubt in due course that may come out in the public arena, may not. And the second point on your second question about the commissioners, that's purely a matter for the County Council, because they're the ones who actually got the commissioners in, and how they're funded is a matter between the County Council and the government. Thank you much indeed.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Stevenage to Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, before I begin, I have to apologise to all the members of the public for my question. It's going to be a bit long and boring, but I think, quite frankly, it's an important question. I've heard in this chamber on a number of occasions that one of the criticisms we all have of Northamptonshire County Council is the lack of scrutiny and the lack of difficult questions. I think this is a difficult question, but let's go for it anyway. Back in July this year, Corporate Governance Committee was presented with KPMG's external audit report for the accounts 2017-2018. Within that report, a number of shortcomings were identified, which, while they were not outstandingly alarming, they were clearly of sufficient importance that they needed to be highlighted to the committee, and this is the Corporate Governance Committee. Today I'm bringing two of those issues back into the foreground for further comment. First issue relates to control over journal entry. Quoted from the audit report, and as I've written in my question, these are my brackets and my underlining. For anybody who doesn't have the question in front of them, that will make it a bit difficult. But here we go. We have raised, this is on the audit report, we have raised two medium priority recommendations in Appendix 1 relating to the journal's authorisation and review process. I've not included the other issue in this question. Appendix 1, key issues and recommendations. However, senior finance staff are able to post a journal directly to the ledger with no further review before a journal is posted, nor are there any limitations on the amount or type of journal. And we have the reply. As in previous years, I've underlined as in previous years where this has been raised. The Chief Finance Officer has assessed this risk prior to it being raised by KPMG and is satisfied there are sufficient processes, controls and reconciliations, I've emphasised the words reconciliations, to ensure the integrity of journal entry and control account reconciliations by senior officers. The action taken? None. Second issue concerns the timely review of reconciliations. And quoting from the report again, our work on council tax reconciliation and bank reconciliation, identified that these reconciliations are prepared by the authority. However, the review of these reconciliations is not appropriately documented. Recommendation going forward: the authority should ensure that the responsible officers for the review process should evidence their review in a timely manner. The report then confirms that implementation deadline is the 31st of December 2018, so very soon to arrive. Now, with my long experience as a finance manager, it tells me that both of these concerns are not unacceptable as I've written here, if they persist unresolved. For the first, I don't accept the argument that mitigating controls can relieve the need to control systems access and input. Surely this is a simple correction which may inconvenience operations slightly, but surely are not beyond even a small department to implement. And it concerns me that this issue has persisted over at least 2 years. Be interested to know exactly how long, but at least 2 years that I can see. And considering one of the mitigating controls is that of reconciliation, as I mentioned earlier, which coincidentally is also somewhat efficient, I believe there is no excuse to not implement controls as recommended. Surely it is incumbent on Daventry District Council to have and to demonstrate the best of control environments in all instances. The reconciliation issue concerns me greatly, especially as it relates to what I would consider are some fairly fundamental accounts. If these are not reviews, could create errors, and if not reviewed in a consistent manner, how can anybody be confident that any represented balance is actually in any way correct? Only by reconciliation, with full and timely independent review, can we have confidence that all matters are known and dealt with correctly. In light of the above, with the leader, I did also address this to the Chair of Governance, but I see he's not here tonight. They'd like to comment on the status of both of these issues.
Councillor Miller, please.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to first of all thank Councillor Daventry for his questions. Maybe it's just a question. And no doubt, Councillor Daventry, you've already been in touch with the Section 151 officer with some of these concerns. But I'm more than happy to provide a response.
No.
So you have? Okay, that's fine. So I'm happy to provide you with a maybe less full response, but I'll give you the response I got. This Council received an unqualified audit opinion for its 2017-18 statement of accounts and an unqualified value for money opinion. The management responses to the external auditor's recommendations were approved by the Corporate Governance Committee on the 31st of July this year, as recorded in the minutes and reported to the October Council. The recommendation concerning reconciliations was agreed and actions have been implemented. The recommendation concerning journals was also responded to, and it's accepted there are appropriate mitigations in place, such that further scrutiny is not necessary. Our auditors reported, and I quote here, in line with our methodology, we carried out appropriate controls, testing and substantive procedures, including over journal entries and accounting estimates and significant transactions that are outside the normal course of business or are otherwise unusual. There are no matters arising from this work that we need to bring to your attention. That's a quote from our auditors. I think the Council can take assurance of our external auditors that its accounts have been properly managed year on year to date. The Corporate Governance Committee will no doubt seek continued assistance about our systems. Thank you, Chairman.
Comment? Yes, I thank Councillor Miller for his comments there. Unfortunately, I don't accept the comments on the journal entry. I think it's a simple fix as far as I'm aware, but perhaps if the officer would reply to me why they think they can't do it. On the reconciliations, I'm glad that that's in place, but as I say, don't accept it as well. Thank you very much.
Councillor Miller.
Well, on that point Councillor Daventry just raised, I'd like to suggest that the officer was response to Councillor Daventry and also copies all members in, so you can all see the response.
Councillor Daventry, you will have a
Yep.
response.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor, question from Councillor Ken Ritchie to Councillor Chris Miller. Councillor Ritchie, please.
Thank you, Chair. We're in a situation in which Councillor Miller has actually already answered the question in telling us what was the nature of the letter that was sent to, at least in terms of what the letter from Rishi Sunak was actually about. But I wonder if you would like me to continue to simply formally ask the question in case there are issues that Councillor Miller would like to add in his response. And the response, insofar as we know it, to me raises a supplementary question that I would like to put. Shall I proceed with the question?
Yes, please, Councillor Ritchie.
At the council meeting on the 26th of July, a motion was proposed calling on DDC to endeavour to hold elections to 2019. And I note that the word endeavour was used, recognising that the Secretary of State may take action to postpone or cancel them. In contributing to the debate, you said, the decision is not ours. And Councillor Brown amplified this by saying the decision was completely out of our hands. These quotes are taken from the recordings of the meeting. In response, I pointed out that the issue was, what are we going to say to government for the matter? In a letter dated the 29th November, Rishi Sunak, the Minister for Local Government, informed you that the Secretary of State had decided to take action to postpone the 2019 elections to 2020, and that he was doing so having carefully considered the representations made in your letter of the 26th of October and all other relevant information available to him. And I ask for the Leader of the Council tell us what representations you made in your letter of 26th of October.
Councillor Amina?
Yeah. Well, I want to thank Councillor Ritchie for raising this issue again. One thing I would say to you, and I want to thank you also for giving me a copy of your Labour leaders' letter as well, which obviously I referred to in the previous question. That letter, of course, was signed by 8 council leaders, including the Labour leader of Corby Borough Council. So it wasn't necessarily all Conservatives signing that letter. And I was going to say that and you've seen the letter, because I've copied every member in as you asked me to do, which I have done. So all members have seen the copy of that response. The one thing I'd like to add, which I did mention earlier, was that James Brokenshire has also announced, obviously he's the one who took the decision, the Secretary of State, and the reason he gave was, it would be elections in such circumstances, we're talking about 2019, risk confusing voters and would involve significant costs that would be hard to justify. Accordingly, I have concluded that irrespective of whether my future decision is regarding the unitaries, my view on the restructuring proposal, the right course is to postpone these elections. So that's the Secretary of State's reasons for actually postponing the elections next year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Amina. Supplementary?
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Miller. I fail to understand why voters would be confused by an election. I think they're more likely to be confused by not having an election. But what I would like to ask is why you felt it necessary, and I realise that the letter was not simply from yourself, it was from all groups, or councils within the county. I accept that. My question is not a party political one. It is about the future of this council. What I said, but you said, we are now very concerned that we will not have sufficient time to ensure due process for local elections. I would be interested to know why it is that it was council leaders that were raising this point. Council leaders have got no responsibility for running elections. That is returning officers. Our returning officer told us some time ago that they were already at work making preparations for elections should they happen in May of next year. We understand it is the same across the country. The returning officers are doing this. Our returning officers are intelligent people. Our returning officers were able to organise a general election with only about, what, was it 6 weeks' notice? It wasn't all that much more than a month's notice last year. If we were going to have elections next May, that's still 5 months ago. I would be interested to know why there was a cause of concern on this matter. And I would be interested to know if Councillor Miller is aware that given the remarks that you made at the meeting last July that I have referred to in the question, and given that you took this initiative, don't you recognise that there is at least a danger that some people, perhaps wrongly and perhaps quite uncharitably, might come to the view that the action that you have taken might have been more to do with protecting some of your colleagues from the verdict of the electorate next year.
Could you go to the question, please?
And my question is, you actually understand that there's a sort of danger that, that the action could be seen in that way, in view of the, in the view of the statements that you have previously made.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, that's very interesting, Councillor Ritchie. I just want to get something right here. This council of all councils has elections every year locally. 3 years of district elections and 1 year of county elections. I believe you're a town ward member, so therefore every year in your ward you have elections every year. All the other councils in North Hampshire have elections every 4 years. And that question might be more pertinent because the election has elections every 4 years, where this year, of course, it can be 5th year. So, I mean, I think you've been a bit disingenuous there about the number of elections we have in this area. We have loads of elections, and no way would I ever worry about holding elections because I thought we might lose or not win. The point is we fight every election fairly and squarely on the basis of what we're trying to do. I'd also have to say, Councillor Ritchie, the Secretary of State took this decision, which is going back to the point before. It's not our decision. Councillor Brown made that point. The Secretary of State is the only person who can actually postpone elections. We may have a wish to postpone elections, but we don't take the decision. And all 8 councils, including the Labour ones, it's not a political issue, decided for 1 year only it would be a waste of public time and money. It's only 1 year, and this council in particular, we have elections every year, it wouldn't be such a big ask to actually just cancel for 1 year. And I think residents in your ward might actually appreciate an election for 1 year off, even though who knows what have a general election soon anyway, so that might change that one. But what I'm trying to say is, but it's true though, that your residents might actually like a year off. So I think the point I'm making to you, Councillor Ritchie, is I think you've been a bit disingenuous by those comments, because actually, we have loads of elections here, and we're never scared of elections, and we fight every election fairly. And I think the point here is it's the Secretary of State taking the decision, not us, supported by all other council leaders. And the council leaders are dealing with this, as we can't come back to each council saying, and every council actually, I mean, the administration here doesn't support elections this year, and we run the council, and that's the same in each of the other councils, including Corby. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Wendy Randall to Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. If I'd known this beforehand, I would have put it in as a motion, but I was too late. I'm extremely concerned that this government has decided not to fund the women's and male refuge in Northamptonshire. Domestic violence in our district is at an all-time high, with those recorded topping 1,000 in 2018-19. It is a known fact that this figure is a drop in the ocean, as on average more than 85% of domestic violence doesn't get reported. I therefore urge you to fund our refuge in Daventry. The annual cost to fund it will be £30,000 a year. This would include a weekly drop-in that could be held in the council. If the refuge closed, I fear it will truly be a matter of life and death for some women, men and children.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I want to thank Councillor Randall for a question on this very important area. So thank you for that. Councillor Randall appears to be quoting information from the Community Safety Performance Report, which says that 1,023 offences of domestic violence were recorded in the rolling 12-month period to the end of September 2018. Is that the one you're referring to? That's what I thought. This figure is for the Community Safety Partnership as a whole. So that's Daventry District and South Northamptonshire District. The recorded number of offences in Daventry District only for this period was 564. So it's about half that number, just under half that number. High reporting of offences is not necessarily a bad thing, because where victims are confident about the help and support available, reporting goes up. It's only if people think it's a waste of time they don't bother reporting. So I think that's quite positive in that sense, that people are actually willing to come forward and report this. The council and partners have been enhancing and improving the responses and support available over many years. And much of our best practice has been rolled out across the county and elsewhere in the country. So Daventry District Council assists domestic violence cases through housing, homelessness and community safety services. Most victims of domestic violence do not have to access a homeless refuge. It is in fact its best practice if they do not have to move into a hostel. These are normally a last resort. As previously reported to the Council, the introduction of the Homelessness Reduction Act earlier this year has seen a general increase in homelessness. From April to the end of October this year, Our housing options team were approached by 38 people fleeing domestic abuse. For the same period in 2017, there were 18 approaches. Only 6 of these homeless applicants were in a refuge, and they're already placed there when they approached us for help. So NDAS, which I'm sure you know what NDAS is, have only just told us that the bid for government funding was unsuccessful. All the councils across Northamptonshire are working together on this topic. Councils and other partners are funding services in a range of ways. We expect a report to county chief executives in the coming months about where partners have considered all the issues and can make a decision about future provision. This council needs to fully understand the county situation and explore all partnership options before deciding whether further support is needed in the district. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Handel.
Thank you. What you've quoted, I have to disagree with actually, and 564 within the district is 564 too many. Most people don't report because they're too frightened to report. It's not for the fact that they feel that something isn't going to be done. I've come across many, many families where they haven't reported, and nationally, when a woman gets raped, they generally get raped 25 times before they actually report it. So 564 cases that have been reported is 564 cases where they are extremely frightened for themselves and for their families. There are other organisations out there that do help, but that does not provide a home for, and that's what it is for these families that flee, is a home. So going through the whole of this report, there's so much money that's thrown here, there and everywhere. 30,000 is such a tiny amount of money that could. We have had murders in this town through domestic violence, and it will only get worse. If that refuge closes and they close across this district, it's going to be absolutely awful. We haven't got many homes for people to go in anyway. So, you know, I would hope that every one of these councils would put their money together. And yeah, we are in dire straits. And look at the money where it has been lost and where it has been spent. And this is something that 30,000 to run a refuge for a whole year. That includes full-time members of staff and a drop-in. You know, that's just peanuts compared with the money that we deal with. So I really do hope that, you know, that we will put in that money. And so does every other council in this county.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a lot of sympathy for Councillor Randall's case and argument. I'm sure the Chief Executive listening to this tonight will also be speaking to his colleagues across the county. I think sometimes it's better to do collectively as we can to try and make it, but I think the point you're making is to try and do it sooner rather than later because obviously lives are at risk sometimes, and therefore it's important. I'm sure the Chief Executive said that tonight, and obviously as a political leader I'll be certainly pushing that as well from our side. So I just think that's all we can do at the moment. Thank you.
Chairman, in terms of information, I don't want to take part in the debate. As chairman of the County Council, my charity this year is NDAS, Northamptonshire Domestic Abuse Services. So any money I raise actually goes to that, and especially some will come to the Daventry Refuge. If anybody is interested in supporting that, very worthy cause, which Councillor Randall most certainly highlights, I'd be only too pleased to receive any donations.
Well said, Chairman.
Thank you. The motion on the council procedure rule 12. Councillor Wendy Reynolds and Stephen Dart. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chairman. Affordable housing. Residents whose needs are not met by the market, NPPF and 2, are entitled to apply for affordable housing for rent or sale. Rent levels and sale prices for affordable housing should be 20% below local market levels. This council notes that recently Daventry District Council advertised accommodation for rent which did not meet this criteria. It is grateful to officers for the speed at which this was rectified by a reduction in the rent, but is anxious to take steps to ensure that those eligible for affordable housing are not disadvantaged by future errors should they occur. This council therefore resolves that Daventry District Council 1 ensures that all affordable accommodation provided by is at the very least 20% below market levels, and 2, makes available to all members of this council the data that has been used in determining those rent levels and house prices.
Councillor Dabbs.
Yeah, I'm happy to second this motion, but can I come back depending on what the other
You
comments
want to
are?
reserve the right to
Yes,
speak?
please.
Thank you. Councillor Olga.
Yeah, thank you. Before I deal with the substantive part of Councillor Randall's motion, I'd like to point out to members that the incorrect adverts mentioned in the motion were not due to any error or failed duty by this council. The housing association involved made the mistake, for which they have apologised. However, I would like to join in and echo Councillor Randall's gratitude to the officers that took immediate action to resolve the situation once it had been identified. Now to the two substantive elements. Number one, I'm happy to report that all affordable housing or all affordable properties advertised on Home Choice are at least 20% below market value, with the significant majority being social rent levels and significantly less than 80% of the market value. And on the second point, officers do not have this data and therefore could not share it with members. I am somewhat surprised that this motion has come before this chamber to debate, as both resolutions, as both substantial elements, could have been resolved by simply picking up the phone and speaking to either an officer or myself. I previously invited Councillor Randall and her colleagues to speak with me, to work with me on these really important issues. Now, I don't know you well enough to understand why you wouldn't want to speak to me or speak to officers about them, so I will move on from that. However, the motion does give me the opportunity to report on what work I've been doing with regard to affordable rent levels on behalf of the public. On the 11th of December, I have arranged to meet with the housing associations operating in our district to discuss affordable rents and to ensure our residents are getting a fair deal. I've also identified from one of our housing associations the very data that you have asked for that provides the calculations for affordable rent. I would again invite yourself and Councillor Dabbs to meet with me and I can share with you what I found. But believe it or not, I found it by simply phoning them up and asking them. Something we all can do and all should do. Chair, I encourage members of this council to reject this motion, primarily because the first part of the resolution has already been done and the second part has nothing to do with this council. I would further respectfully suggest, Chairperson, that we may vote on it now so we can move on to other important matters, because I don't see there is particularly very much more to debate. Thank you.
Councillor, you...
Which one are you calling?
So sorry.
You just carry on debate.
Councillor Dabbs, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Organ for your comments. I think we'll have to discuss things internally, but I think your offer of a meeting would be a good idea. I understand, therefore, from what you're saying, that it's not the council's responsibility. Do the housing associations and all that, they calculate those prices? Are you confident that they know where they've gone wrong and confident that they won't go wrong in future?
You know, they are private organisations, and from my experiences with them, I met with the CEO of one of them recently. They really have a desire to provide affordable housing for the needs of our district. Will there never be mistakes? Now, I can't say I'm confident that will never happen, but I'm sure their endeavours are such that they wouldn't want them to happen, and they were highly embarrassed about the mistakes they made. But what I want to assure you is that I'm determined to ensure that the residents here are getting affordable rates, and also I'm asking them to cross-check what their affordable rates are, because apparently each registered provider, each housing association calculates it independently. And this is why it'd be great to spend time with you so we can look at this to ensure that we cross-check things, to ensure that all of our residents are getting a fair deal. Thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Yes, Chairman, I don't support the motion. I can see what the person is trying to achieve by it, but trying to influence housing associations to charge a specific rent level, well, I think he's wrong anyway. It's not us that decides that. And to try and do it, the only way that you could do it would be to alter the percentage of affordable housing. So if a developer, say, had to provide, let's say, 10 affordable units, but this council was pushing like mad for a housing association to make the rent levels pretty low, in fact in excess of 20%, because it does say at least here, the only way they could achieve that would be to alter the equation of not having so many affordable houses. So the developer wouldn't be providing so many affordable houses, making it easier for the rent levels to be lower. So we would get less houses, but at a lower rent. I don't think that's something we should be working towards. I think discussions and listening to what is happening, as the portfolio holder said, would be a better way around it than supporting this motion, Chairman.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm slightly confused. I think I heard Councillor Erger begin his remarks by saying that he was confident that rent levels that were advertised for affordable housing were at least 20% below the market level. He also said that he didn't have the data that allowed us to see how 20% had been calculated. I don't understand how you can be confident of something that you don't know anything about.
Councillor Oldfield, would you like to write? Do you want to write?
No, I'd like to respond to that because I don't think you actually listened to what I said. But I'm confident that the work that we do in here, there was no fault or lack of due diligence on our behalf with regard to those advertisements. They were done and a mistake was made at the Housing Association level, which I cannot guarantee that they won't make a mistake. What I can guarantee is that we will do our best to identify them. I think it was actually Councillor Mandel, one of your colleagues, that identified it. With regards to the other point about the calculations and the formula used for, what is the market rate that we take the affordable level from, I have a formula which is used by one of the RPs. That is not our responsibility, but I have it. And what I'm asking now for all the other registered providers, the other housing associations, is to say, do you all use the same one? If not, where are the differences, and are our residents being treated fairly? Thank you.
Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. When those properties were advertised and I brought the issue to the council, they were withdrawn and then they were put back up. But they weren't put back up at 20% below market rent. It was about £50 less, and they were up for like 650. And that was when I'd gone through that week to see how much private rentals were. Those advertised downstairs were joint top with all the private rentals. So if you then calculated that would be 20% less. So if it was 650 and it should have been 20% less, that wouldn't just be less £50 on my reckoning. And like downstairs at the moment, if you look downstairs, they are what I would call our more affordable levels, because they are around about £100, £110 a week. But these ones that were advertised and still went on to be advertised, even though slightly less, were still, still way up there with private rentals. And to me, surely, if we don't know what that basis is, if we don't know what 20% is, 80% of our rental properties, how are we going to know when we're advertising downstairs whether they're right and whether they're wrong? And that was my whole point. If we don't know what formula they're using, we are the ones that have got control over the allocations. If we don't know, how do we, surely we should know. We should know, and we should be, if something comes in at a rent that is above that, we should be going back to them and saying, no, you need to adjust your rent. That was the whole point of making sure that they are correct before they go on that board.
Do anyone has anything new to add? Otherwise, I will go to the vote. Councillor Roger, I think we will go to the vote now. Nobody else has anything to add. And you will have a discussion with Councillor Randall.
Yeah, I think, Chair, it's far more complicated. I think it's exactly what we need to do. We need to sit down because everyone has a different system. It'd be nice to sit down and work with my colleagues from the
I
Labour Group.
propose that Councillor Randall and you have a meeting after the council. So we go to the vote. For the motion, please. 5. Against? The motion is lost. Thank you. Motion on the Council Procedure Group 12, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Aidan Ramsey. Please, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair.
Pleasure.
Our motion is that this council expresses its very best wishes to all residents for the Christmas season, whatever their religion or lack of one. It notes that many people, including many councillors, are inspired to serve others by their religious beliefs, and it acknowledges the work done for our communities by religious leaders of all faiths. It also notes that there are others who derive their motivation to serve from secular views and humanitarian values. And this council gladly accepts its obligation to treat all equally without discrimination. This council respects the wishes of councillors who wish to prepare themselves for council meetings through prayers or other acts of religious observance, and believes that arrangements must be made to enable them to do so in council offices. However, this council, as a secular institution which serves people of all faiths and none, believes that religious acts should not form part of formal council agendas. It therefore resolved that prayers should not appear in council agendas, and that arrangements should be made for those who wish to take part in prayers prior to the commencement of each meeting. Sorry, I have just read that. I think you're going to finish it.
Thank you, Councillor.
If I can see, in terms of what it is we're asking, in a few weeks' time, we expect that everybody in this district is going to be celebrating Christmas. But for the great number of them, Christmas will have no religious significance to them. The reality is that now a majority of people in this country identify themselves as being of no faith. And of those who do say that they have a faith, of course, many belong to faiths other than Christianity, and within Christianity there are a whole number of different denominations. Church-going, the level of church-going has now dropped to something just over 1% of our population. Now, this motion is not intended as a commentary on social trends. It is not against religion. It recognises the important part that religion plays in many people's lives. And it acknowledges the good work. It's another good work that is done by religious leaders and their organisations. But we are here to serve all residents. This council belongs to us. It belongs to electors. And there should be nothing in our policies and practices that makes some feel more welcome in this chamber than others, whether they're here for meetings or for other purposes. We need a council that reflects the society it serves. We should therefore avoid practices that could make non-Christians, and indeed non-Anglicans, feel uncomfortable and out of place. The work we do can still be guided by the values of Christianity and of the other major faiths, but we're a secular institution, and acts of religious observance should not therefore be part of our meetings. We are the only council in the county that has got prayers as part of our meetings. The county has prayers before the start of meetings, I can understand that in their circumstances they are going to try everything they possibly can. There are others, Wellingborough, I have got a Wellingborough agenda here, they do not have prayers as part of their agendas. We have small print.
Councillor Ritchie, could you...
Yes, I will do. In the small print, we put, please
Councillor Paul, please. Sorry, Corinne Paul, Mr. Paul, please.
they give a note to say that prayers will be said before the meeting, and they invite those who do not wish to take part to leave while prayers are being said. This wasn't simply us that we should do something much the same. We do not make prayers part of our formal agendas. We make sure that the facilities are there for people, whatever their faiths, to pray before the meeting. I would like to suggest to you perhaps some should pray afterwards for forgiveness. Thank you.
Councillor Aidan, please. Aidan Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second that motion. That was very extensive, but I'll reserve my right to speak until later in the day.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And also, I'm glad that there are quite a few members of the public here who may not understand the issues surrounding prayers in council meetings. First of all, enshrined in law, there is a statute that says that we have a right to hold prayers at the start of our meetings, and we've done so in this chamber for many, many years. This is because it is impossible to deny that the UK is a Christian country without rewriting its history or ignoring our heritage. England has an established church, bishops sit in the House of Lords, and our Queen is the supreme governor of the church and defender of the faith. Most people in the country consider themselves cultural Christians. I think Councillor Ritchie was referring to them. Even Richard Dawkins, who is an outspoken atheist, admits that he is a cultural Christian. Many people still believe that church has a central role in civic life, and I'm sure that many of us in the chamber and in the public gallery have attended baptisms in churches, marriages and funerals. I do, however, find it richly ironic that as we approach one of the major Christian festivals, Christmas, which is widely celebrated by our residents in the Daventry district, we have a motion before us proposing to remove prayers from our meetings. So much for goodwill to all men. So what is this motion really about? Well, I'll ask and pose a few rhetorical questions, and I want you to ponder them. First of all, do prayers pose a danger to our work as councillors? No, I don't think it does. Do they pose a risk to the delivery of services to our residents? Does it stop us collecting the rubbish, or, processing planning applications? It certainly does that. Are we compelled to remain in here and listen to the Christian doctrine? No, we're not. We're at liberty to remove ourselves from this chamber if we wish to. All right, why don't we look at it from the other angle? Well, what good does it do? I think that's a fair question. Well, I've spoken to a number of councillors, and some of them actually say that they enjoy it, that it actually helps them focus in on the doctrine of kindness and of service and of integrity. And so therefore there may well be a little bit of good it does. But whether we consider it does a little bit of good, or whether we consider it a benign item on our agenda, what is the point of removing it? Well, in my considered opinion, the doctrine of secular ideology's response to religion is simply to silence it. It's simply to silence it. It's not interested in understanding or respecting or compromising or tolerating. I believe it's an attack on freedom of religion, and I feel it's an attack on freedom of speech. Now, of course, at the end of the day, it is up to you as members to decide on whether we keep prayers or not. It's not my opinion or Councillor Ritchie's opinion or Councillor Ramsey's opinion. It is opinion of us all, and we have a statutory right to make that judgment. And I know there are many members here that may be a little bit ambivalent about the issue. but I would respectfully request you reject this motion and allow this chamber to exercise its long-held tradition of prayers as an agenda item for this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. To me, if there was prayers or there wasn't prayers, I would just come to my council meeting and carry on with business as usual. But what I will say, I mean, I actually quite like it in a way that it gives the church the opportunity to learn about what's going on more out there. And whenever we hear, because I know that it's not always you, but it's always something that's reflected about what's going on within this district. So whether it's homelessness or whatever it may be, it's generally something that is reflected at the beginning of the meeting. And then it ends. Because it doesn't matter what is in these council papers, nobody seems to have taken a blind bit of notice of what seems to have been said in the prayers. There is bullying that goes on in this chamber. People are rude, people overspeak each other, there isn't, the respect in here is awful. I have had so many members of the public over this last 12 months that when I've left this chamber, and I've never met these people before, they have said to me, I don't know how you cope with how you are bullied in that chamber. So to me, yeah, have prayers by all means, but actually listen and truly do reflect on what is being said to you, and maybe start having a bit more respect within this chamber.
Thank you. Councillor
Thank you, Jared. I can't follow council order too well, but I'll have a go. I hope, and I think I'm a Christian, but I accept there are several people that aren't Christians. And I look around the chamber, and I've talked to quite a few people that are not religious at all. So I say, well, you stay for prayers. Well, we stay for prayers because we respect other people's religion, and we don't want to walk out the room. We stay here, and there are several of them, and they're quite happy to say that they are. So, and I just heard Councillor Randall, I'm sorry Councillor Randall, I'm not going to bully you now, but I'm going to say, to suggest that prayers are a good way for the person saying them to learn a bit more about the council. I think it's not what prayers are about. I think if you read the book about, if you read the Bible, I think you'd learn a bit more about what prayers are about. I'm not about that at all. I went to, Chairman, with my other hat on, a Bangladesh evening where they were all Muslims, and prayers took part, and I took part as well. I didn't walk out the room because I didn't understand what they were on about, and also a Hindu evening, smashing night. Again, prayers took part. Again, I couldn't, it wasn't in the English language. I didn't walk out. Because you just don't do that. It's sort of respect. With a lighter note, on a lighter note, Chairman, could I suggest the council buys an organ, sticks it in the corner, and at the end of each council meeting plays "God Save the Queen," or if there's a queue in the month, perhaps plays the red song at the end of the meeting, Chairman. But don't get rid of prayers.
Councillor Lomax,
I want to say something very similar to what was said by Councillor Auger. And I speak as an agnostic. And I think that it's a very strange motion, because to me it suggests separation and division, whereas prayers are, or should be, about coming together in a silent moment of reflection to focus our minds together on the task in front of us on behalf of our communities. A prayer is a moment of silence that should give us space and time to acknowledge what we do in agreement, disagreement and respect. And I would like to say furthermore that the motion fails to recognise by implication the importance of language, of ritual and tradition, all of which help to find individuals and our disparate communities. It is the same as the significance and the importance of funerals, commemorations, weddings, and thanksgivings of faith, of whatever faith or wouldn't like. Perhaps it would be more appropriate for the sponsors of the motion to suggest that other spiritual leaders and humanists are occasionally invited to perform the function, or perhaps those with rooted objections can absent themselves from the chamber. But divisions lead ultimately, at the worst, to fear and violence. And although we haven't reached that point in this chamber yet, in spite of what Councillor Randall says, I do think that symbolism is very important. Thank you.
Councillor Schaefer, please.
Simply to put the matter in the historical context, Chairman, when Councillor Osborne and I first came here, it was the custom and practice for members to say prayers. And indeed, Councillor Russell, who was usually an independent, and Councillor Russell was the last one who performed that duties. He was my vice chairman in about 91, I think it was, and when he became my vice chairman, it was then that I instituted the process of inviting a local priest to come along and say prayers. And that has happened in every full council meeting since 1991. I think it's a great shame if there's any suggestion that it should be ended now. We've only got another year or so to go.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just a short point. In Councillors Ken Ritchie and Aidan Ramsey's motion, it says that the council is a secular institution, but surely this secular institution is also governed by the laws of England, which has an established church, the Church of England, and in legal terms it's known as the Church Established. Well, with this said, the motion seems to be a little premature in their disestablishment notion, as I feel that if put to the vote, there would be a sizable number of councillors in this room who would wish to remain in the anti-disestablishment camp and to continue with prayers and reflection in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out that when Canon Michael Webber is here this evening, when he's present here as a community leader of equal, if not greater, importance than ourselves. And that period of prayers is a reminder to us that we're here for the benefit of all of the residents of Daventry District, without favour whatsoever. So, I find it very comforting to stand here and reflect for a moment on the business in hand, what we're about to do, and to remind myself that we must act in the interest of all too. I also find that the strength of praying is very great indeed. And I know this from my own personal experience recently, when I've had to put up with great stress and indeed pain. And fellow colleagues, fellow Christians like myself have comforted me and told me to keep faith, which I have done. And I do not underestimate the strength and power of prayer. So please, let us get away from this nonsense. Let us carry on as tradition has had it in the past, and let us do so in the spirit of harmony.
Councillor Morgan, and after I will go back to Councillor. So Councillor Morgan, and after I will go back to Aidan Ramsey and Ken Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I really only wanted to add to the voice. I'm totally against this motion. I also do go to church, actually, and I often have to dodge Canon Michael because I go to Braunstone, not the one where ward. But I am greatly comforted by Canon Michael when he comes and prays, and it does give us a moment of reflection. I actually see this as it's about a marginalisation of Christianity. It's about relativism, and the atomisation of our communities and society, and yet this is a pillar of the community, as also Councillor James said. I actually really regard it as an act of vandalism. I don't be too personal about this, but one of the people proposing it comes into council with a cap on backwards. So, you know, where's this really going in terms of our standards? Yes, I know it's all relative, again, it's nothing personal, but it's all sort of the sort of theme I see. What also makes me fear about this, actually, is we're going to replace something like Canon Michael's wise words and prayers and reflections with actually another 5 minutes of nonsense from people like Councillor Ritchie in Guildford. And I'd rather have any day prayers and faith and that reflection than that which I'm hearing. And this is absolute relativism, and it's a shame.
Councillor Adam Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair.
With your cap on or?
With my cap on. That's going to be my first point, actually. Much like the way that I choose to dress through council meetings, my faith, I don't believe has any bearing on the proceedings of the meeting, as far as councillors and the people that we serve. I find it interesting that the word tradition has been mentioned quite a few times. Some traditions are important, but also traditions over the years do change and develop as we learn different things about our culture and different things about our society and what may be appropriate or not. It's been said that this is vandalism and it's divisive. I would like to note that the motion does call for that provision of full prayer and worship to still be included and incorporated by the council, but just not part of official business as an agenda item. And for me, it's just clearly that inclusion point of that. By including it as official business on the agenda, we're kind of making the statement that we are a Christian organisation for Christian people, which we are not. We are for all people of all faiths or no faiths within the district. That's pretty much it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Ritchie. And after we will go to the vote.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, it's clear that prayer doesn't work with anybody, with everyone rather. It clearly doesn't work with Councillor Morgan, making him a little bit more charitable this evening. Just firstly, on a factual point, you say that this council has got a long, long tradition of holding chairs as part of this meeting. You should know that in 2014, the High Court ruled that it was illegal for councils to have prayers as part of their meetings. They did change the law, and I'm assured that since the law changed in 2014, it is actually only a small minority of councils that act in the way that we do here, in having prayers actually as part of our agenda, rather than something that might happen outside the meeting. And I think that what happens outside the meeting is important, because clearly, religion is important to many of the people who have spoken here. That is perfectly plain. But let me take you back a year. Last year, when we had the big survey on Daventry's future, it was astonishing the amount of cynicism that was expressed about this council. Now, it just mirrors what is happening across the whole country in terms of the way that people regard politicians and their institutions. And why that is relevant is because all this surveys show that people see that politicians are different from them. They operate in a different space. They do things in a different way that they cannot relate to. We have got a society that we are there to serve that doesn't go by the symbolism of Christianity. For them, the concept of an established church means nothing. Many have no faith. Many have got quite different faiths. And I guess that we are all here looking around. I'm sure that everybody here has probably been brought up in an environment that was dominated by or at least the church dominated that spiritual area. What about the number of people that we now have? Even the number of people that have come recently from Eastern Europe who are Catholics. I do have Anglican prayers. The number of people that have come from other parts of the world. The number of people who perhaps are Muslim or are Jewish or are Hindu and everything else. I understand that Northampton Borough does attempt to do some sort of prayers before its meetings. It will not, will circulate. So that there is a sense that the council and the way in which the council conducts its business is something that does bind the community together and does not just reinforce the prejudices of a party. This is not a party political issue. It is about the way that we operate as a council, and I hope that that will be considered when people vote in the motion.
We will go to the vote. For the motion, please. 3. Against the motion? Lost. The motion is lost. I will take the report of committee in block. Item 8.
Madam Chairman, as a Jewish Protestant married to a Catholic girl, I have a question.
Now, item 9, recommendation of committee. Page 81. SG 50-1801, update to housing rate policy. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Housing is an increasingly important part of the council's work. This flows from an overall demand for housing and also from major changes made to the council's duties towards people who are or are at risk of being homeless, introduced by the Homelessness Act in 2017. In this context, the council has needed to respond particularly to this issue using the tools at its disposal. And this need continues, and as such, it is appropriate to revisit certain policies to ensure that they work as effectively as possible. So I have before you 3 recommendations. The first is that the amendments to the housing assistance policy set out in Appendix A be approved. That the amendments to the strategy housing plan set out in Appendix B are approved. And finally, that the homelessness prevention scheme 2018 policy set out in Appendix C as amended is adopted. Thank you.
Councillor Warren, would you like to speak?
No.
Councillor Mino?
Yes, thank you. I think I got a bit confused last time, so I just want clarification. With people moving into, because I know now that there is a poster downstairs urging people that are on the housing register to seek looking at private rental as well, because there is so few of houses for rent. I just want to clarify that if they do go down that route of looking for private rentals as well, that there will be help with a deposit, because obviously when you private rent, you know, if you go into a housing association house, you just pay your rent, but obviously if you go into private rental, you've got to have like a month and a half up front and then, you know, your deposit. So I just want clarification that if they do go down that route, as is in the poster downstairs, telling them that if they don't, they can be taken off the register, that there will still be help with this funding, an interest-free loan for deposit. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To be honest, I didn't read that in the papers. I'm not too sure that it appears in this slide, but can I defer it to an officer to give some detail on that and whether it's actually part of this these recommendations?
Could I suggest that the officer can send an email to all the councillors?
Yeah, I'll accept that, but even easier again, you know, just ring the officer and you'll get answers to these things. I don't know my chair, but I certainly didn't read it in this part of the policy. So I made a mistake on that.
Councillor Simon Barr, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the simplest response is the proposed homelessness prevention scheme policy, if I can say it, does contain provisions that would allow that to happen.
yes.
Do we agree? SG 511801, development of Lorna Daventry. Councillor James.
Councillors will be aware that District Council owns a large piece of land known as the Knoll, the Marches. And it's a piece of land that has very difficult topography and geography. And senior councillors will recall that they've been toying with the Knoll for many, many years. The difficulty is this, that any development of the Knoll which has been suggested in the past has always been unviable. For example, the District Council obtained planning permission for 2,700 metres of light industrial space, only to find that the earthworks alone, in order to create a development plateau, would cost something like 1.4 million. Then, of course, there'd be the drainage and the access roads. Once, even on the most simple residual calculations, if you assess gross development value and deducted away all the developers' costs, profits, fees, finance, and all the rest, you'd end up with a negative land value. Anyway, that being as it may, a proposal has been put forward that if only a more intense development of the Knoll could take place, the planning permission would be forthcoming for, say, 6,000 to 7,000 square metres of space, then there might be a development proposition there. And the council is willing to let that run in terms of granting a long lease, say for 200 years, at a nil rent to a developer that could undertake a development of that sort in order to create employment opportunities and of course to facilitate the development of land, provision of additional rateable value and so on and so forth. The council is prepared to go along with that, provided that if planning permission isn't obtainable within, say, 3 years, then of course the developer could walk away. Or alternatively, if planning permission was obtained and the developer hadn't done anything substantial where developing the site within 5 years, then the council could walk away from the agreement. And in either of those instances, there would be no costs to the council. So in a sense, it's a win-win situation for BBC. So that is the proposal before you, and it would accord with the best consideration policy which we require to observe, and I think it's section 123, subsection 2, the 1972 local government. Thank you, and that is my point.
Do you have a second? Councillor Morgan, would you like to speak?
Chairman, further comments, I think Councillor James outlined about that.
Do we agree? Agree. SG 511802, West Northamptonshire Road. Councillor James again.
Yes. This has come up before, I'm sure. Daventry District Council, South Northamptonshire Council, Northampton Borough Council, and Centre are proposing to put forward a growth bid because we are using the Milton Keynes, Cambridge, Oxford, Milton Keynes arm. And what we are proposing to do is to put in for a growth bid. Members will recall that we are committing in a sense, by virtue of the National Planning Policy Framework, to facilitating much greater development, particularly residential development within the area. And experience in Daventry in the past has been that we've always provided development, but we've had very little by way of money for infrastructure, hence the oft-quoted complaints of who's going to pay for the infrastructure. So under a growth deal, we would, in return for providing more housing, as it were, obtain money towards infrastructure. So we've taken the bull by the horns, and we've put forward a draft statement which proposes that that be done in 2 stages. The first stage would be for us to require a sum of money, I think the suggested figure is £9 million for capacity funding, which will enable us, the 3 authorities and Central, which will enable them to appoint consultants, various experts, to see where and when the development could take place, and the infrastructure that would be required in order to produce sustainable, healthy communities, rather than as hitherto, where developments have been lumped on the sides and settlement in the middle. Let's provide something much more orderly and structured for the benefit of the residents and the benefit of Western Hamptonshire as a whole. So the second stage would then, of course, be the implementation, where we would require to know how much you're going to give us, in a sense, to do this, and what benefits we can get, whether that's transport, whether it's various facilities, additional facilities, whatever. Accessibility would be a priority for us, and also making great use of land in the county would be a priority too. So there are a number of things, and the suggestion is that whereas our target as suggested by housing needs surveys is something like 70,000 houses until the period until 2050, so that's roughly over the next 30 years again. That we would suggest a target figure of something like 100, which would be quite a substantial increase, but then that is a target. What happens over 30 years, of course, is another matter, but one does have to suggest a target as a pay step. So that is the proposal I'm putting forward to today, and it is that a stage 1 growth deal for West Northamptonshire along the lines given in the appendix is confirmed.
Do you have a cylinder? Councillor Brown.
Nothing to add.
Do we agree?
Agree.
AG 561801. 1920 capital and revenue budget and Middletown financial plan. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. The even more interesting section than Councillor James's section. We obviously discussed this at length at strategy. In fact, at strategy, we flipped the agenda around, so this came earlier, because there was some quite interesting news in here about our financial position, which perhaps thanks to our prayers or because of the good financial management of officers, has actually been in a pretty good position for many years because of our prudent position. However, as outlined at the meeting, our situation does deteriorate over the coming years. Perhaps we've obviously got the larger authority potentially to look forward to, but notwithstanding that, we still have to protect our finances for the future now. And so what you have before you is 4 recommendations based on how we laid those out in the paper. These are the updated assumptions and proposals concerning the financial strategy and development of 2019-20 budget preparation processes set out in section 4 of the report we approved. Essentially what that's all about is setting the scene for the year ahead. And as the cycle progresses, we have increasing amounts of detail. The next one really is about the budget projections as incorporated. This is really where we see that, if like, the a level of deterioration in the finances, particularly actually if you start looking at some of the tables there, particularly with respect to which I'll come to in a minute, projected shortfalls and deficits that we're going to start encountering, actually from 2021. So we do need to be careful, we need to keep our wits about us and not go into some frenzy because we think the council's ending, we can spend a lot of our money. Still need to be prudent. And the keen-eyed councillors amongst those here will notice that we've got a distinct feature on public convenience costs. So it's actually brought out separately, that particular item. That relates to circa 28,000 to run the toilets in the town, which the special expenses, which will be pulled out of special expenses, etc. basically. For anybody who wonders what the benefit of that is, it basically is dispersed across the whole district rather than being a special expense. And really the idea behind that is because it's a public benefit to everybody across the district, not only the people in the town. And finally, the draft proposals for the capital programme as detailed in section 6 and appendix C of the report approved. There's quite a lot of numbers in there. We've basically got a capital programme of £34 million. We've got some quite chunky agenda items coming up, which are obviously built into those numbers. But what I would say, if we approve all of these matters we're looking at tonight, it is the possibility to put us into a borrowing situation over the next couple of years, as we outlined in the paper. And again, as we come back through to the next slide, depending on what the activity is to be reflected in those numbers. And really, with that, Chair, I'd like to put those recommendations forward. Thank you.
Do you ever see them? Councillor Brown.
Nothing to add, Madam Chair.
Do we accept the recommendation? Agree? Thank you. SG 57-1801, development to TCV, Site 1, Mowbray. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try not to bore members with this. I feel sometimes I am repeating myself quite a bit. Can I say before we start that a planning application has been submitted for the proposed cinema on TCB 1. The reference number of the application is DA2018/1033. Now, obviously, I can't comment on the planning application other than to say, if you do go on that DA/2018/1033, you'll find that there are 58 media files on there, and they're very, very interesting, some of them, including a statement of community involvement, which is very interesting because it sets out all of the community involvement that's taken place. The consultations, the public consultations, the consultations with stakeholders, the number of hits on media. So 40,000 people have looked at it on media, on social media, for example. And the result is very, very positive. People want this development. And it is something which we've had in mind for a long, long time as part of the original Mulberry Place development, when it included retail as well, which has had to be changed because of the changes in the retail market. Anyway, the purpose of this recommendation is to let you know that when we started in haste to get this off the ground, we originally estimated a ballpark figure of about 8.2 million, I think it was, for just the cinema alone. And that was a figure taken out of the air without costings and so forth, quantities and the rest of it. And we've had to fly with the seat of our pants really in getting this thing done in such a short space of time, and particularly as we want to get this concluded as quickly as possible, preferably by the end of February if we can, the details. It has since emerged that we are not only going to have a cinema, but we're going to have 2 restaurants as well, as well as quite a substantial and enhanced public square, which it opens out to, providing access both on the High Street and also to the car parking area. And there'll be water features and all the rest of it to make it really attractive, so that we leave a legacy which presumably the town council will make great use of, because they're very adept at providing attractions within the town, as we all know, and they do the job very well, if I may say so. The purpose of this recommendation is to let you know that the estimates will be revised to £12.3 million in respect of the entire development. Part of the reason for that increase are the difficulties that are being found with the site, with the groundworks there, and also with the utilities, which are very, very ancient and probably are not suitable even for the existing use, let alone any enhanced use. So quite a lot of renewal has been done, and you can see some of that if you look on the media files, on the planning application, things like drainage, for example. And you can get an idea of how these costs have come about. So we're looking then to revise the budget to 12.3 million. Hopefully, planning application's been submitted. We should get the planning permission by February of next year, February 2019. In fact, I think we should be able to get it together before one of the January planning committees, because it will have to go before the as I say, council planning. And if we can do that, then we could get a main contract entered into in March 2019, and work could probably start in July 2019 with completion in August of the following year, 2020. But time really is of the essence. We're working to a very tight schedule, and officers are really working at pace to get this done, because there is the ever-present threat of the unitary situation over us. And opportunity and it's a threat in terms of if we don't get this done and spend our district residents' money on this particular project, we should probably lose it. And I'm not being sort of cynical when I say I'd rather the money be spent in Daventry than be spent on the regeneration of Northampton. Thank you. That's my proposal. Oh, and the library. Yes, I must say before I close, the library. The proposal for the library is that this will cost about £1.5 million to relocate it from the existing building to the Abbey Centre. We're hoping that we could start on the necessary works to enable that to take place sometime this month. And if we can do that, it could be completed by April 2019, and relocation could take place in May of next year. So we're talking about a figure of about £1.5 million, which should be, I think, more than adequate to cover the cost of refurbishing the abbey to enable the library to go there. And that proposal has been very positively received. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to second these proposals, these recommendations. At the strategy group, we had a very good debate on this, actually, a very full debate. And Councillor Randall at that meeting actually suggested that, in her view, no one wanted this cinema. And the strange thing was, a few days later, I was sent actually a stream of one of her tweets, where she said, "What do you think about the proposal?" And surprise, surprise, a lot of people came back saying, "We want this, we want cinema, yes, do a cinema in Daventry." That was right, really, wasn't it?
No.
I'll speak in a minute.
That's what I saw when it, so I can't speak for everyone who said that. But I just want to say, Madam Chairman, I think this is a very popular move. We get a lot of good feedback across the district, and certainly in this area and further afield. A cinema in Daventry will be very well received. Multi-screen cinema. This is particularly smaller types of screens. It's not really big cinemas. This is about a bit like the one we had Errol Flynn House in Northampton. You come along with the experience. You have a good bar. You have smaller screens and smaller cinemas. We're looking at having 3 of those, maybe 4. And I think it'd be really good for Daventry. It needs something, and also brings people into the town centre. 2 restaurants. This is about revitalising Daventry town centre as we all move forward. And the cinemas at the moment are in low. I mean, some actually, I think the bigger ones struggle more, but the smaller ones seem to work very well. And what we learnt actually is you don't need many, you have a smaller cinema, they can make a profit with quite, not that many people in them actually. In terms of you have a 90-seat cinema, you only need to fill it by half to make a profit. So if you get good films coming in, you might find it very profitable. And I think it's very, very good news for Daventry in town, and I think it's very good news for the future of Daventry. Because one of the things we've tried to do for years is actually get into the town centre and use it rather than going further afield. So I fully second this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard how much money is going to be spent here. There are lots of applications for funding. Obviously, we've got another one up this evening as well. With all this collectively, it may well push us into a little bit of a borrowing situation. So members also need to be aware of that. I think collectively these things may have an impact upon us. What I'd really like to know, actually, particularly Councillor James, is how can we guarantee this scheme will be viable in the long run and it won't leave our taxpayers at risk? How do we know it really is going to have the intended impacts? Because we've got other people here tonight who want money. How can we guarantee this funding is going to work for this particular proposition compared to other things we can do? Thank you.
Councillor Gabbs.
Thank you, Chairman. Good to know.
Could you take at the end? Yeah, so it'll be easier. Thank you.
Yeah,
sorry.
I have to admit, I'm quite conflicted on this. I think a cinema, great idea. I have massive concerns about the sudden increase in the costs. I remember that was, I mentioned that at the strategy meeting and certain answers were given. I just wonder what dangers there are those costs will creep up again. I hear what Councillor Morgan is saying. I can't help feeling that Council is actually about to overcommit, and bearing in mind the next item on the agenda, I wouldn't want to see a shortfall of money. Perhaps what we shouldn't have done is agreed to buy a certain tunnel and repair a certain railway bridge to help with the finances. But back to the cinema. What are the issues? Where's the operator? Have we got an operator yet? Why not? This is a few weeks after we had the strategy meeting. So have we had progress? I can't see that, but perhaps Councillor James will advise us on who's about to sign on the dotted line if it hasn't already been done so. Consultation. I was a bit disappointed to find that the consultation is actually out there. The results of it are on the Daventry District Council website because a planning application has gone in. I found from one of the officers yesterday that that's where it was sitting in one of however many files that there are on that planning application. And I think it's disappointing that nothing proactive was done to advise councillors, advise members that the consultation results were on the website and that the planning application had actually gone in. I think the application was dated the day after the strategy meeting. So I have to say I'm very disappointed that somebody wasn't more proactive to let us know the state of play with the consultation, because I think it's very important that we could have read that and come to the meeting tonight having digested its contents. That's about it. As I say, I'm conflicted. Broadly speaking, I would say I'm in support of this, but I think some of the concerns that I have means that will it be a success? I hope it is. I'm still not decided whether I vote for it or not. Thank you.
Councillor James, would you like to reply?
2 points. First of all, I was going to respond to Councillor Morgan. There is no guarantee, of course, on the success of anything. But suffice it to say, there will be an element of flexibility built into there's 3 or 4 screen cinema, so that it can be used for other uses too. We have had about 10 potential operators who have expressed an interest in it, and seriously we're considering 3 or 4 of those. It's not, when you're dealing with a development, it's not like going into a shop buying a packet of cigarettes or something like that. There is an element of risk involved, and that is that things change, circumstances change. With any development, one doesn't know until the diggers come in what the ground conditions are really like, or what is underneath the ground. So there's always some risk attached, but I think you can say that at this very early stage, and let's face it, we've only been dealing with this since the spring of this year. At this stage, to have 10 enquiries about it is very, very good. And to whittle those down, one of them is a very serious one too. It's very good progress. And if the worst comes to the worst, well, there are alternative uses that one might consider as well. But I don't think we should go into it with that sort of pessimistic outlook. One of the things about going to the city, and it was a former council Frenchman, he now lives in Market Harbour, and he said, I often go over to Corby to the cinema, he said, and get a cheap ticket. And I think that the same will happen here. People from outside in the wider district, and this is a big district, over 250,000 over 200 square miles. 250 square miles. Yeah, I know, I think it's people will start to come into Daventry from the district itself. And if it's an attractive proposal, which it will be, then they will use it. I'm sure, convinced. I think it's a good move, and it will certainly add extra vibrancy to the town as well, if we make it, as attractive as possible. Second point, on the consultation. Well, I was at a consultation where you were present, at least one.
Talking about the results.
The results of it. Well, I thought they'd been adequately posted. I found that good.
Councillor Ritchie and then Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. I only discovered where I could find the consultation results at about 5 o'clock tonight, so I have only glanced at them. But of course, these are the consultation results only for the cinema. There was another consultation that was conducted by the county on the change in the accommodation of the library. We have yet to see that. And I feel it's strange that we're in a position that we're having consulted the public, that we're now in a position of taking decisions when we haven't, we certainly haven't seen the county one. I'd be interested in a show of hands how many say that they have actually seen the outcome of the consultation on the cinema, but I would guess it would be very few. Look, let me just make 2 issues that I want to address. The first, Daventry is a lovely old market town, at least the centre of it is. Many buildings going back centuries. That's recognised by making the place a conservation area. And it's into a conservation area that you're planning to put this ultra-modern looking building. A complete eyesore where it is. The library that you're planning to demolish is not a listed building, but in the conservation document it's listed as a positive building, and I've forgotten to bring the actual wording, that it said that there should be at least be a presumption that it shall not be, it shall not be removed or destroyed or defaced or worse to that effect. And here we are planning to knock it down and put in something that looks quite out of place. Why, if we're going to have a cinema, could we not have a cinema that at least does something to blend in to the character of the, of the things that are around about it? Now, my second point really is, just to show there's no ill feeling, to agree with Councillor Morgan. He's told us that, the pit is not bottomless, but this project is going to take up most of it. Even if we just look at the cinema and the bare 12 million, if you split that around the district, for every 3-member ward, that would be £1 million. Now, I believe that people in Daventry want a cinema. I want a cinema in Daventry, but there are other things that people in Daventry want. And life's about making choices between the options that you have got. I could produce a great long shopping list of things that I would like money for in my ward, and I suspect that most are the same. If I lived over in Brixworth or Morton, I would be seething at the idea of all the district's money being used in a project that will be of no interest and no value to them at all. Now, I know that time is of the essence, that has been put, and yet we're being told that the planning application was put in the middle of November. We're not expecting the city here to reach the planning committee until February, and it's not going to be until July in which we start work. I would like to think that at least, if necessary, have an extra council meeting put in, an opportunity to actually think through. 12 million is one hell of a lot of money, and I just feel that there needs to be an opportunity for people to think just a little bit more about it, and what are the other options, what are the other things that they could do with money of that sort.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Just in 2 minutes. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, going back to Councillor Miller's point, I did put it out on social media. I put it out on Malton, Brixworth, Woodford. I just thought I'd get a few different areas, Daventry, and in 3 days I had nearly 600 responses. Brixworth and Malton was unanimously, and I'll just read you some. If a cinema is commercially viable, let a commercial operator build it. If not, clearly the public do not want it. It goes on to say, all the time, what are they thinking, wasting public money on, a commercial building. So this just went on and on over Brixworth, Malton and Woodford. I think one in Woodford was for, all of those were against. In Daventry, it was quite a mix until an operator wasn't in place. And then it changed again. There's no operator, so we could be left with an empty building. Yeah. So we could spend all this money and just have an empty building. Yeah. What they doing with their council offices? Now that made, a lovely library, lovely cinema. I totally agree. I don't know what's going to happen to this building. But it's not just about the library. It is about the cinema. It's also about the library. Had lots and lots of comments about the library and groups that also use the library, which there doesn't seem to be much in the reports about how it's going to affect the groups that use the Abbey Centre. And there's a disability group in there, and all the parents and carers have called a meeting. They are extremely concerned how all the upheaval is going to affect them. They've already said, look, they've got mental health issues, they've got anxiety issues, there's a lot of movement going around, there's strangers around, there's, different groups now are going to be using the level that they're on. So they're extremely concerned and anxious. As for the library moving into the Abbey, it'll be nearly all underground, no natural light. To me, you go to a library, it's a place of quiet and quietness to study, and to have artificial light on all that time, well, surely it's not healthy for the staff, let alone everybody else going in there. I've already expressed that to me, if this space is too small, nothing like what they've got now, because not only have they got the ground level, they've got actually underground storage, they've got a separate room where different groups can play, like the children, time and rhyme time. They've got the registering of deaths, deaths, births and marriages, and it's just very small. Yes, there's lots of things that we would like to see within this town, but it's got to be right. That is the big thing. And 12.4 million, and we're not going to be fooled. It's not going to be 12.4 million, is it? Because it never comes under budget. It always goes over budget. So we're already at a risk of taking out. We're in deficit, so we're going to even fall even more in deficit. And who's going to take the responsibility of a deficit going into a unitary authority? So yes, I would like to see a cinema. Yes, I would like to have seen a cinema that had been built by an operator and run by the operator. That's what I would have liked to have seen. You know, but the decision we're making here is, yes, I do want a cinema. Don't get me wrong, I definitely do. But should we use 12.4 million estimated upwards to build a building that we do not know if anybody is going to come in and run it?
Could you, thank you. Councillor Sandra.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of factual comments, really. The first thing I want to say is that when I was chairman of this council a couple of years ago, I spent a lot of time wandering through and around Daventry and the immediate environment. And the two things that people kept saying to me was, what we really want is a cinema and more shops. And I think we're actually addressing those needs. The second thing I want to say is that I don't share Councillor Randall's views on or fears of the use of artificial lighting. Modern artificial lighting is indistinguishable from natural daylight. And the final thing I wanted to say is that all councillors should know, because it's part of their duty to know these things, that all of our consultations appear on our website, as do all the results of all of our consultations. And that's probably true of all other authorities as well. So if the county council carried out a consultation, it's worth looking at their website under the appropriate heading to see whether they've published their results.
I will take one more and then we will go to... Sorry. Councillor Preacher.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I had a delay.
That's fine. I find myself in an interesting position also, wanting this development, knowing that since I've served people within this council, I haven't seen many infrastructure projects being actually produced and finished. However, there are some facts that need to be cognizant of here. And those are that in terms of cinema development, now Councillor Miller talked about tendencies for cinemas, and and to be fair to him, he mentioned larger cinemas that are struggling, but it's also smaller cinemas that are struggling unless they're placed within a huge metropolitan area with large footfall. In fact, Netflix and Amazon, they will overtake box office receipts in the next 18 months. Year on year, even since the global downturn, tendencies to cinemas have been dropping, and this year has been one of the worst years, with up to now in the first 11 months of delivery, perhaps about 4 or 5 million attendances UK that were down already. So when we try and project and develop what will be a service, and again I'm conflicted, I do want that town centre development. We have to be very careful that we go headlong into this without an established partner, and also being very cognizant also that when people pay for this, that they can access it in their day-to-day budget. Because also the UK has the highest cinema ticket prices, not in Europe, in the world. And because of that, we need to make sure that those people that don't have many funds, and I know you would think these days, and I can assure you, working along with children and families, things like commuting, taking a train is out of the cost of most families these days. Going swimming is out of the cost of most families these days. So we're trying to take a family to a cinema, which may be more expensive as a small provider, but that is perhaps me summarising correctly. I can't confirm that. Might be out of the budget of a normal family. So if they're paying for it, then surely those that can't afford should be subsidised accordingly so they can attend and use the facility. But I know that won't happen because that business model won't be successful.
Thank you. So now we will go back. Do you accept the recommendation? Oh, sorry, Deputy James. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I say that, because we have been distracted, there is a car which has an alarm going every 5 minutes, and the registration number is DY 04 ENE. DY 04 ENE. And it's going out every 5 minutes.
Let us just stop.
It stopped, but it will go later on. It's just in the parking, so somebody with DY04, we might have a problem later on. Sorry, Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a point I'd like to mention that the purpose of me giving the reference number for planning application was so that members could look at the media files themselves and look at their own minds. There was no intention on my part to discuss the planning application on which I may be a party to judging it in due course with an open mind when it comes up before the planning committee. And I'd like to point that out to Councillor Ritchie to keep an open mind when discussing that planning application. Thank you.
And also to all the members of the planning committee in that matter. Thank you. So do we accept the recommendation?
Go to the vote.
To vote. Show of hand for the recommendation. Against? The recommendation is carried.
Thank you.
Abstention. Four. AG 51-1801, request by Rich for help for new premises. Councillor Yale, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'll wait till everybody gets quiet, so I'll make my point first. Members, strategy on the 15th of November, there was a full discussion on Reach for Help. I think it took about an hour and a half. The meeting itself was well attended, and both strategy members and non-members gave their views. I was extremely gratified by the amount of cross-party support. And you all have the recommendations in front of you. Basically, that the council fully funds a new building for Reach for Health in accordance with option 3 as set out in the report, and seeks external funding to assist with the project. However, I think it's only right that I reiterate some of the points I raised at strategy. Reach for Health has been well established over a long period, some 25 years, during which I myself in my portfolio long have visited on several occasions. I've spoken to patients, and patients possibly recovering from hip operations, strokes, mental health issues, and suffering from Parkinson's, and many, many others. They have worked tirelessly to raise funds. There was a mention in the report about specialist equipment. They have funded over the years their specialist equipment. They have funded equipment that is needed and is ready to be transferred to the new premises. That's not a problem. Having spoken to many grassroots sportsmen and women, they would welcome local access in helping in recovery from injuries received while playing sport. I took 2 groups of councillors into Reach for Health. They were all able to see the equipment. They talked to the users, namely the patients, and I know from their comments they were suitably impressed. In fact, very, very impressed. Reach for Health also supplied quite a lot of evidence in support. Here we are, this is what they supply. And you've all recently had a copy of the magazine as well. So there's been plenty of evidence. and they supported this, they gave this in support of their case. So basically, the evidence is there, the support is there. Our MP described the facility as unique, and he gave his wholehearted support. There is some support from doctors who refer to their patients, and there's an article from Dr. Davis in here, and I've spoken to Dr. Davis and others myself. The work they do even got a mention on Remembrance Day in the church it serves. Canon Michael Webber complimented on what they did. So the church and many members of the public actually support them as well. And let's just reflect for a moment. Reach for Health is an excellent title. I think it's a brilliant title for what they do. I would think everyone in this chamber actually reaches for good health, don't we? Don't we all reach for good health? Of course we do. But some of us are healthier than others. But none of us know what's around the corner. We don't know that. Some of us one day may need to use this facility for ourselves. So let's think of this as an opportunity. Yes, an opportunity that if across this chamber we all stand together, all of us stand together, we can look each other in the eye in the knowledge and satisfaction of knowing that this council as a whole came together to support something for Daventry and district patients that actually could grow into a regional centre and with even wider benefits. And finally, I'd just like to read something that's fairly hot off the press. Reach for Health has been granted a secure email address by NEEN CCG for referrals from GP practices and hospitals. This email address has a suffix of @nhs.net. Reach for Health also has its own referral form on the NEEN CCG portal, designed with NEEN CCG and the North Hampshire Armed Forces Covenant. In respect of the email address and referral form for Reach for Health, it's the first and only non-NHS organisation in Northamptonshire to be granted this facility. There are no plans for NEEN CCG to extend this to others. This has to be the greatest expression of trust and belief, in my opinion, that Reach for Health has ever received. So there we are, it's in front of you. I've only skirted over many benefits that those who've seen it and been there know what they do. The members, I commend this to you all. Please support this for the good of Daventry District, the patients and the residents within there. Thank you.
Please do have a comment, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Beard. Yeah, I'll be happy to second this, Madam Chairman. I just want to say that it's especially on this, because after the strategy group had a very good event, cross quite the support. I think only one person did support in that particular meeting. But one thing I'd like to say about this is that behind the scenes between now and then, I've actually been trying to make some ground with the CCG and NHS to get some support for this proposal, because I think that Councillor Morgan's already mentioned that we're actually pushing the line a bit in our finances now. And actually, going back to the last item, we're leaving a legacy behind. When we're no longer here, which at the moment is 2020, I realise at the moment the government's a bit uncertain what's going on. But obviously, I think it's right that the money spent in our district, and the money we can spend in our district, in a proper way. And I've been told that balances are available, should we wish to use them. I'm not sure if it will be required, but that we'll see in due course. What I want to say on this in particular is, because if you look at the Dr. Matthew Davis, who's actually the medical director of NCCG, I contacted the new chief executive of the Alliance CCGs to ask him whether or not the CCG can help in any way on this proposal. He advised me that all the capital monies were committed, they are committed, and therefore revenue was the other option. And one of the ideas we put forward to this gentleman was when people get referred from the NHS to, say, Reach for Health, would there be a money that goes with that referral? And that would seem entirely reasonable, bearing in mind, obviously, we're saving the NHS money by Reach for Health rehabilitating or helping people to recover from whatever condition they have. And that seemed to be entirely reasonable. Now, I'm meeting this gentleman next week. He hasn't come back to me so far in email. I was hoping he might come back before tonight. But I'll be raising this point again with him next week when I meet him. As an introduction meeting, he knows this is on the agenda, as one or two other things are. And I will push that point yet again, because I really do believe the NHS should be contributing towards this excellent facility. Now, the whole point about the new build, of course, is it's building for the future. The current premises have done well so far, but clearly there's only so much capacity, and we believe with the older population, and one of them you are, Madam Chairman, with due respect, reasonable, that there's going to be more and more people who might need a facility like this, and that's being honest about that. I can say I can feel it now, actually, I might need it. But what I'm trying to say is there's a serious point here, is that there's an ageing population where more and more people might benefit from a facility such as this. So in a sense, the sad thing here is, because obviously it's unusual, we wouldn't be doing this normally in this way, and the reason I think, going back to the last item, is about a legacy issue now, about our council, when it disappears, this could be a very positive legacy for our community we leave behind. And that's just like the other one, whether you believe the cinema or not. It's not just the cinema, by the way, it's also the public square and the library and all the rest. So what I'm trying to say is about leaving the legacy, which I fear will not happen when we move into a unitary, because obviously our influence over this area will be far less when we move into a unitary, just by the numbers. And when you think, bearing in mind the initial opinion about 93 councillors, that's the current proposal, which I'm sure will reduce in time, 51 of those councillors will come from the borough. To just give you an idea, and 21 each from South Northampton and Daventry. So that's what I'm saying about influence. So the point about this is we have an opportunity here to influence the future. Now I set this risk in this, but one of the things I think mitigates that risk to a degree is that we will own the building when it's built. It's a modular build, which is quite common in public sector buildings, and therefore that's one side. The other thing is it's a peppercorn rent, so the rent we're getting actually is the market rent. So let's take an instance of Reach for Health, for whatever reason, fails in a few years' time. We then have a building which is up, whereas this council the new unitary by then, the unitary will have a building which will be unencumbered and it will be their building, and they'll be able to then let that building out, maybe for more market rent or higher rent than they currently do for Reach for Health. So in my view, that's mitigating the risk of what we're doing. Because it is about risk, it's public sector, it's public funds, and we have a duty to actually do our very best with those public funds. And we're very blessed in this council to have such a great team of senior officers and our 151 officer who have managed our resources really well over the years. And obviously, we've heard their advice, but sometimes, bearing in mind, as a council, we're running out of time as a council. We need to actually look at things in the round and take a view on this. And there's a lot of support out there in the community for this proposal, I can tell you that for nothing. And I have unsolicited support, I'm not looking for it. And I just think this is an opportunity. And I have great confidence in our leadership of our management team that they can find a way to help this happen if we decide to go down that route. There's always things you can say, right, and Councillor Morgan, I know, has a responsibility in his portfolio, and he'll speak on this no doubt due course. But obviously, I'm just saying, there's an opportunity here, which I think we can make work with the collaboration of our members and our senior officers. Now, it's obviously up to council to decide what to do next. But I think this would be a real benefit for the community. It really would be a real plus for our residents. And what's a great way, along with our similar proposals and our town centre Mulberry Place proposals, to actually leave another legacy for our district if we agree this tonight. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I have a number of speakers. I will tell you who are going to speak and after we'll go to the vote. Councillor Osborne, Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Dabbs, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Gifford, Councillor Warner. And we will after go to the vote. Sorry. I will go to the vote. If Councillor Auger has something else to say that hasn't been said, I will look at you at that time and we can add it. Will that be convenient? Because I think we will have a long, I think it's, if Councillor, you at the time, before we go to the vote, I would ask you if you have a further point to make. Thank you so much. So, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. For those who didn't know, I was one person at Strategy Group that spoke against it. I didn't speak against it because I didn't think Reach for Health were a good organisation, brilliant organisation, good reputation, does a lot of good. I can't fault anything that is said about it. So there's number one. Why did I speak against it? I spoke against it because in all my time as a councillor, you always, at this sort of level, you consider what is being written in a report for a start. So in other words, you look at an officer's report and that's the way that the business case has been looked at. The officers look at the business case and I'm sure they will work out whether it's, in their professional opinion, whether it's viable or not. Well, clearly they don't believe that it's viable. And we've got two senior officers, we now call them directors, I think, or a different name anyway, that consider that it's not, the business case does not stack up. I'm not aware that any member has got the ability or has seen the business case and can say that it does stack up. But our professionals say that it doesn't stack up. I've always been led to believe that you don't give money to somebody that doesn't raise some money itself. And I don't mean well, if you listen to what I'm going to clarify the point. In other words, if somebody asks for a grant to do something, they normally say how much they're going to raise and whether you match fund it or whether you give them something towards it. But you don't normally get somebody that says, I would like £1 million, for instance, to do something. And whatever you put in towards it, nothing. But we want you to put the £1 million in. Normally they say, we've got 200,000 towards it and blah, blah, blah. So in other words, the option 2 in the strategy group papers would have been the option to look at, and I would have supported that very much so. I cannot support it when the senior officers of this council do not support it. There is no money coming in. It doesn't matter whether they've got money in the past. How did they get the money in the past? Did they ask other people for the money in the past? Is that the way they got it? I don't know. I'm not a professional on that sort of thing. But I do know senior officers don't believe in the case. No members have seen the business case. I'm afraid I cannot support it, Chairman. They're not putting up any money. We've got to look after public money, and that is not the way to look after public money, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor
Chairman, thank you. This is a matter of head or heart, and what I'm going to say will sound like I'm opposing the proposition, which I'm afraid I am, but not for any reason other than purely governance. It is clear from the documents and from everything we've heard that Reach for Health is doing a fantastic job for people who come to that organisation regularly. And we must respect that, and indeed we do respect that, because it's a proposition here that we support them in their current premises. The question is, do we support them in new premises, Chairman? Chairman, as you know, when we had reorganisation, I chaired a scrutiny group to start with. I went on to chair corporate governance and then resources. Throughout my last 10 years here, governance has been a key concern of mine. And this proposition is a governance nightmare, I'm afraid. When Councillor Miller made his motion to the Council in July 18, he said that existing premises are fairly old, expensive to operate and too small. Well, the accounts show that they pay rates of nearly £3,000, rent of £11,000, insurance heat and light of £5,000-6,000. They're not that expensive to operate. It's curious, and I'll come back to this point, it's curious that they show a rates bill of £3,000 in the last accounts. As a charity, one would expect them to have 100% rate charitable business rates. Clearly they've not sought 100% business rates relief, possibly because a significant element of their work is not actually charitable. In in their, on the current trustees' report, which is filed with the Charity Commission, they say our beneficiaries also include people who are physically well but who wish to use our facilities and services to ensure they remain in good health by improving physical and mental fitness. Yeah, they originally called themselves one-to-one gym when they were started. Now I can get an annual membership of Virgin Gym at £700, or I can be a member of the gym here for £350. They do offer gym facilities quite properly, and indeed one might suggest it's the right thing to do, to subsidise a charitable activity, run a commercial operation partly as a gym. But there's a question mark there as to whether or not that does impinge upon charitable functions. In their evidence to officers most recently, this was raised, and they said that they generally redirect fit people to other gyms. Well, I take that with some caution, because clearly there is a gym element here, and well, I quite happy to support that. It's there. Now, in September, the proposition was made to the council at the Saturday Group to secure their current location, and that is the alternative proposition that is currently on the table. We secure their current location, grant allocation, dispose of rent. We're offering them in the new building a rent-free building. Why not offer them a rent-free building where they are? In the new building, if they do aspire to complete charitable status, they would have business rate relief. Offer them business rate relief where they are. The costs, those are varied. In their pamphlet, it was referred, the first pamphlet that we've seen, 850,000 was a cost. In September that was $1 million. In November it's 1.4 million. In the letter in which they circulated to members most recently, it's 1.7 million. In the document that Councillor Hills referred to, he held up a 48-page ring-bind document, which I've seen. There's 47 pages, Chairman. I'm sure Councillor Hills would criticise, correct me if I'm wrong. There are 47 pages in that document of what I might call marketing stuff. Very good quality endorsements of the good and fantastic work that they do. There's one page of financial data, and that is the estimates of 1.4 million of costs. There's nothing in there that talks about anything that we would normally see as a business case. Jim, we heard earlier, being represented, surely it is incumbent on DDC to have and to demonstrate the best of controlled environments of all instances. Councillor Dabbs would recognise those words. It comes from his question. The best of all controlled environments in all instances. Chairman, this I'm afraid, this proposition drives a coach and horse through our controlled environments, through our government structures. The principal grants schemes involve 50% match funding, as Councillor Osborne has mentioned. The grant approach would require an appreciation on scoring. The scoring, in this case, on the grant approach, okay, I'm finding my final point. The score is 33 out of 100. It fails completely on grant. And moreover, it's not a question of writing a cheque for 1.1 million or whatever. They want us to build the building. Do we have the capacity to build the building? Do we have the officer time, the project's time to build the building? Well, I leave that in there because it's not been addressed. Okay.
Councillor Dabbs.
Thank you, Chair. I did think when I was going to stand up and speak in support of Reach for Health that this would be quite an easy one. What I would say is I pretty much entirely agree with what Councillor Hill said. Thank you for those words. I think they were well put, well argued. I also agree with quite a lot of what Councillor Miller said. But unfortunately, the gentleman over here must have taken leave of their senses and really suggest they get down to Reach for Health and find out what they do. We're talking about business cases. There was, I believe, a proposal to put a canal in at one stage. How much did we spend on that? It was over £1 million.
Subject to a business case.
And we never got a business case after having spent however many millions it was. I remember that the write-off was over £1 million, so that seems a bit crazy. Cinema. Have we got a business case for the cinema? Have we seen one? And what are we going to spend on that? 12.4, I think? More expensive than we spent on the canal? A lot more expensive than Reach for Health. And I think also, in terms of the reports, I read the reports for strategy meeting, and I could not believe the results. If it's not too strong a word, I thought the reports were biased against Reach for Health. But where I was gratified was at the actual strategy meeting that most members, I think it was just Councillor Osborne, as he mentioned, was against it. Everybody else was thoroughly for the motion, thoroughly for the motion number 3, which was to finance the construction of the new premises entirely. And I'll come on to what I was going to speak about, and I'm just concerned about the wording in the recommendation with the seeking of external funding. What I want or would like to ask for is assurance that this quest for external funding will not delay any actions towards getting the buildings into place, assuming planning permissions and so on. That there won't be somebody who comes around and says, oh, but we're waiting for such and such to make a decision on their grant. I would like to say that any grant or any external offers of help will be nice to have, but we're going to go ahead with this, and I would ask members to vote for this. Thank you very much.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I think it falls to me again as portfolio holder to perhaps be a little bit unpopular. Actually, I really support this in terms of aims and objectives for what the organisation does, and I think it's a very good facility. But I do have a question for Councillor Hills. We've heard various figures actually, and I'm not entirely clear what the figure is. And I'd like some more clarity around that, and I'd like to make sure it stacks up. Just go back to the point Councillor Dabbs, actually it wasn't entirely thoroughly almost unanimous -1 support, because actually I spoke out about this strategy, and I said that, again, go back to the money point, and I don't think I was entirely comfortable to support something which hadn't got officers' endorsements, and in fact I put it to the chair of the meeting that we should defer the consideration of this until we've got support from officers based on information from Reach for Health, and then we'd have a consensus across officers and non-citizen members. And when we put this recommendation together, I did actually vote for it, because actually I was voting on the element of seeks external funding to assist with the project costs. And actually I'm slightly disappointed, because I don't think this has, quite opposite to what Councillor Dow says, I don't think this should be turned down or had as a nice to have. I think this should be front and centre of the application, because we say Reach for Health is good, and I'm sure it's got a lot of endorsements from the marketing material, but then we should be able to have a little bit more luxury of time to get the case together, so we are acting properly across, and then we can do our full support as members based on the monies and the good work they do. So it's a question for you, councillors, about the money, if you can answer that. And then I'd actually like to recommend we have a deferment of this until we come back with a proper business case there. And please, don't heckle me, because we're making a point of discussion. Obviously you're welcome here, but we have to have a debate, and we have a duty, and I have a duty as a portfolio holder to make that point of doing my fellow members. Thank you, Chair.
I have to second that amendment, Chair.
Yes. Right. Thank you. Now, again, when I spoke at strategy, I said I was in support of this.
Point of order, Chairman. Don't we debate the amendment once your amendment's been proposed?
Yes. We are clarification. Sorry. We refer to our monitoring officer.
Chairman, I was trying to interpret what was being said. I think what was being proposed, and Councillor Shepard referred to it as an amendment and seconded. The amendment being proposed was to adjourn the debate.
Yeah.
If that's the case, that is what's called a closure motion. Then, certain things kick in. And I'll just deal with that for a minute.
That's shocking, that is.
We haven't voted on that. They voted down.
So if a motion to adjourn the debate is seconded, which it has been, and the chairman thinks the item has not been sufficiently discussed and cannot be so discussed on that occasion, you would put a procedural motion to the vote, without giving the mover the original motion the right of reply. That's what's being suggested in effect, to adjourn the debate for further information, etc.
If I understand correctly, you ask the item to be deferred for a business case.
Chair,
Could
thank
you
you. I'm
clarify?
not being lynched here by the group
Yeah.
for making the abrupt end. That's not my intention at all. My intention is very simple. I fully support the work they do, and I would like to see them have the money. However, I don't feel I can support it until we have a really good business case, which has been supported by officers as well as members. And that would give me comfort as a portfolio holder. So what I'm actually asking for is for it to come back to get more information from them to support a fuller business case, so that officers would come back and say they've looked at it and they've done their best to examine all the evidence and information and have a decision. So that's my
I would ask for clarification.
If we're not to take it as a closure motion, you would take a view account as to whether you would see that as an amendment, that you can just simply say, inserting some words in here, the council defers consideration of this recommendation to the fully fund until... So in that case, if that was the proposal being put forward, that's proposal being put forward and seconded on that basis, put that to the vote, members will be aware of that, take a view on that, and then proceed with that amendment, or if it fails, it reverts back to the original debate.
So what I think the best, what might be to take the amendment, to see if the amendment is accepted. And after, if the amendment is defeated, we resume the debate.
Yes.
I think that would be the fair, because it has been debated quite a lot. We have an amendment, so
It hasn't been done.
You've got to put the amendment to the vote.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
if it gets turned down, we go back to the original.
yeah, exactly.
Chairman,
So,
point of order again. I hope you're going to ask if the proposer accepts the amendment. And if they don't accept the amendment, then surely there will be a debate on the amendment before any vote on it. So that is the correct business procedure. So I hope that you will be doing that with respect, Chairman.
Chair, it's really not my intention to close down debate whatsoever. I simply want to have some space to consider that item. And I'm fully expecting that actually people may well say, no, let's get on with it. But it's my duty as a portfolio to put that forward as an amendment to say that gives us some more space to get some further. So I don't want to close down debate. I'd like it to continue, but I'd like that to be considered. Thank you.
but Councillor Morgan, you propose an amendment, you are second. Is the seconder happy with the amendment?
Chair, as long as the amendment doesn't close down the debate, because I think members still need to have a conversation. And I also think we owe it to the public as well.
Yeah, exactly. For its worth, Chairman, I intend the amendments to be taken later.
Okay, so are you happy with that? So I will carry on and... Yes.
Chair, you should be dealing with the amendment, but you would have a debate on it, that's fine. And if you, at the end of the day, you don't debate, you don't think it's right to defer, you deal with it, for and against, and if it's lost, you revert to the debate. The main motion.
So would you like to debate the amendment, Councillor?
Just a very brief comment, Madam Chairman. I fully sympathise with Councillor Morgan's sentiment insofar as he has to defend the interest of his portfolio. However, I disagree with his stance on this. I think we should be fully supporting Reach for Health, and I think we should be supporting them tonight. And I would suggest that we move to a vote on this amendment ASAP so that we can get back to the substantive motion ASAP.
Do not clash in that chamber. Thank you so much. We have to do that for every people, everyone. We do not boo or clap in that chamber. Thank you. So I take the amendment. For the amendment, please raise a hand.
With no debate on it, Chairman?
No. With no debate.
Can I actually say, as a procedure-wise, and could it be recorded that I object to this council putting forward an amendment which has been seconded and you won't allow a debate on it?
Okay, so can we move on with this,
Yes,
Chair?
exactly.
Because quite honestly, I think everybody here would like to see this amendment voted on. Let's get it done and out of the way.
Could we vote on the amendment? For the amendment? Four. Okay. 5. Against the amendment? It's lost. So we carry on with the debate. Councillor Gifford.
You sure I'm allowed to speak now?
And I'm sorry, but that is what I had to do as chair.
Lost my thoughts a little bit after that debate, so I'll try and keep it in order. But I've made a few notes here. Regarding the budget situation, we have always been a prudent authority and we've managed our budget very well. This is unprecedented times, and I think maybe we should look at how much prudence we put in the budget, and maybe that's something I can ask the portfolio to take away, because we are in a different situation, so we can probably see some changes. Regarding that prudency, there's items that haven't been accounted for additional income. For example, in the past we've had income from the additional green waste, green waste income. We've got a passport of the Northamptonshire Waste Partnership fees. We don't have to pay them those this year. What I'm trying to get across here is this is a projection of a current budget, not factual. If I move on from that, Councillor Osborne said it was of officer's opinion that there wasn't a good business case. Now, when my fellow councillor has commented on there's no business cases for the cinema and there's no business cases for the canal, but we went ahead with those. I think it's unprecedented to then insist on a full business case for this. I've seen the responses to the report from Reach for Health, and in my opinion, those are good responses that mitigate the risk that other councillors are saying we're taking. Regarding the charity status, now you have to go through robust controls to be a charity, and the income you generate privately has to go back into the business. We have charities in Staverton. We rent out private fields. We generate private income for that to go back. I am sure if it wasn't a charity that was, above board, it would have been struck off. In fact, there's a precedent here. This council actually, when we had the old leisure centre and other functions, we had charities in place. We operated that scheme before. So yes, I am in support of Reach for Health, but I will say, and I spoke against its a little bit of strategy because a lump sticks in my throat that NEN commissioning is not putting income into this. But we've heard this evening that there's a strong possibility that they may do, and that through the commissioning, through the revenue, they may bring through some funding there. So, to vote against this, without knowing if that funding is coming, is just as bad as to vice versa. So I support it.
Our office, our 151 officer would like to clarify what you say.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Members, you'll know that whenever my reports are produced with regards to the budgets, we do take a prudent approach, and I'll make no apology for that. It stood us in good stead. You've also mentioned, in terms of those levels of prudence and the unprecedented times we find ourselves in, I would not want members to think that those deficits that are presented to you, and yes, it is forward-looking, it is good financial management to have a medium-term financial plan, but those deficits that are projected are unprecedented levels. This isn't about whether we come in underspent as we have year on year, but it's at levels that are nearly 50% of our net budget. And I wouldn't want members to think for 1 minute that a general outturn position is going to put off the very difficult decisions later on, whether we're in a unitary council or whether we remain as DDC, that those deficits will not be an issue for the services that we deliver.
Councillor, well, we tried to say it, right?
Oh no. Yeah, the wood is in sheep's wool and no on the end. I think that's the best way to do it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Allow me to have a little problem with pronunciation. I'm French, after all.
I'll let you have that. Reach for Health. No doubt a great service to this community, and rehabilitation is extremely important and a needed service. Just so you know, I'm absolutely passionate about patient choice and quality of care. In fact, for the last 20 years, this has been my health sector. I have been a CEO of a leading national charity. I'm a trustee of a leading national charity, and I now run what are called quality improvement projects for the NHS. So I'm standing here with a slightly health hat on, but also with my counsellor hat as well. So, but I do have a however here, because looking at the documents that have been provided to date, and listening to obviously to the officer's objective opinion, that, and also of course obviously the resources portfolio do have observations on this and bits of concern. My reasoning is as follows. This is just what I'd like you to consider, that there is a very limited business case that's being put forward. It lacks future cost projections, and it is a risk. I think this is a small charity turning over about 140,000 per year. It's classified as a very small charity. It's susceptible to failure. Now, I don't want to see it fail, and I'm actually supportive of it, but I don't think I'm seeing enough information to make a case at the moment. There is no reliable, sustainable income stream, partly caused by the fact that the CCGs are not paying for the service, of which 90%, I believe, are referred into it. And I think that is appalling. So that needs to be looked at, but you do need to make a benchmark business case to get that through the commissioners. So the other thing is there's no detailed fundraising strategy. So at the moment this charity is very hand to mouth. It only raises about £18,000 in what is local events. Obviously I can see a gentleman shaking his head there. Local events and donations. And then of course there's the subscriptions coming into the business. Any more than that I cannot pick out of the paperwork that I have been given. So, what I'm asking for to the proposer and secretary is to defer this recommendation for some more information. One, to make a proper case, to make a proper business case. One that perhaps we can take forward to the commissioners. One that actually will give a proper business platform for a longer-term view, and which obviously then means that this is a resilient operation that can last and be successful in the next 5 to 10 years, which it should do. Absolutely should do. Thank you.
I have 3 councillors who, or 4 now, who have asked to speak. Councillor Auger, Councillor Fisher, Councillor Howard, and Councillor Morgan, and Councillor Miller. Now, what I would like for all of you is to make a new point and not to repeat what has been said before. Otherwise, I would ask you to sit down. Thank you so much. Councillor Auger.
Yeah, please don't use the gavel, that's all I'll say.
I will stand, in that case, I will stand up and you have to sit down.
Okay, I think it's really important that the public realise that this is a serious debate, and those that have spoken against it have a valid voice and have argued their point really well, and that's because of the importance of the debate. We do not want to have a shoe-in whereby we just vote this thing through without fully understanding the risks, the benefits of this type of project. So I would hope you would respect those that have articulated their point of view very, very well with regard to why this may not be the best thing to do. I'd also like to, and I'm glad the public are here, to acknowledge the team that we have here at Daventry District Council. They are outstanding. They're incredibly capable. I arrived in politics about 3.5 years ago, and was immensely impressed with the quality of the individuals that I met in this district as officers, and now as a portfolio lead work with two very, very capable individuals that have supported and helped me in my portfolio, and have given me and allowed the opportunities to help shape policy here. We also have a 151 officer that is renownedly respected throughout the county, and I've had the opportunity to see the Chief Executive in action in various guises recently, and I'm impressed with his leadership and his integrity. And I think we are a very impressive, capable team. I think this is something we should be supporting, having listened to all the arguments. But I'm also immensely grateful that we have a team that can deliver this. There is no doubt about that. They will deliver an absolutely top facility that will benefit some very vulnerable people into the future, and it's about time we did more of this. And remember that there are certain elements of our community that require this intense treatment and this specialised treatment, and I hope, members, that having listened to the both arguments on both sides, we come to a decision that will benefit the people and the residents of our district.
Thank you, Chair. Trying to be brief.
Thank you.
I will just mention that I've spent over 20 odd years in the NHS as a practitioner, frontline services. I've also seen how the interface between primary care, those community services, and secondary care has been more and more divorced. In fact, when someone's referred to a hospital, those rehabilitation services are more and more scarce to find. Those for those individuals that may have suffered from stroke, multiple sclerosis, other neurological problems, orthopaedic problems, and beyond. What I would like to say to you, I do understand some reluctance from the two councillors, but there are no certainties. We've discussed this in the chamber time and time again. In fact, Councillor Shepherd, going back to the canal, I'm not going to drag it up, but there was uncertainty.
Please don't.
There was uncertainty, and Councillor Shepherd said in this chamber, when we were looking for trying to secure secondary funding, it will take a large degree of faith. And at that point, we were looking for £8 million. This is essential. We are in a current climate where the NHS is suffering. Anybody that works with it is to tell you that. What we're in a position now, what we can do is provide healthcare for the locality before this money may be subsumed back to another area and our priorities may not be at the top of the pile. So I support this wholeheartedly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be extremely brief, and I'm very disappointed tonight that the land strategy, I thought it was going to go straight through tonight. When Councillor Hills put the proposals to us, he didn't speak. He left his speaking until right at the end, so he asked for an open debate, which we had. I jumped in, probably a little bit too quickly, but I said, would you go for option 3? The reason I mentioned that we should go for option 3, option 2 would be the perfect solution. These guys do not have the finances and don't have the time. As the Chief Executive Officer for this council said, we do not have time because we're going to go into unitary and we will have less councillors representing the people of this district. So just one more clarification is it's 1.48 million that's being asked for at the moment. Okay, so members are not reading the papers. This is black and white in front of you. So the other thing is, I will go for option 3. I will stick with what is on this paper, and I fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor Councillor Morgan, and after Councillor we will go to the vote.
Thank you. I actually put it, what is the price, because I wanted to make absolutely sure. And 1.48 million, yeah, I can see the paper. But actually, and I knew it was there, but what I wanted other people to make sure we knew that, because when Councillor Shepherd said, he said there were various prices banded there, various amounts of money. Before we have a vote on this, and before we then have to go and work at the finances, I'd like it to be clarified how much we're looking to put aside for this venture. That's all it is. It's in the paper. If it's 1.48 million, you can tell that's definitely the case.
One estimate. It's one estimate.
It's one estimate, that's my point. What's the amount? That's all we need to know. Yeah.
Chair, sorry, at the moment, that's the figure that's in the papers, that's what we're working to.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back on Councillor Waldo's comments, because I had a good chat with this over the last week or so. Bearing in mind her background is very useful. And I know the press are here tonight, I'm good friends of the press. One thing to be very helpful from the press is actually to raise the issue about NCCG contributing to schemes such as this. In Brixworth, for instance, we've got a new doctor's surgery, which has been lying empty for 4 months. It's actually built, ready to be used, and it's been held up allegedly down to delays on the CCG. Now, I've recently YouTube second spoke to them a few times, so I think we need to put pressure on the CCG here, because you're saying also, Councillor Waldo, they should be doing more. And I think that's where the pressure should come. And when we had the first debate, I was happy to go for option 2, but obviously the meeting went for option 3. I think it's a line at the bottom of option 2, which members felt was going to delay things. Also in that meeting, I think the Chief Executive said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you said we've got to make a decision now rather than delay it. And I think that's one of the reasons why members went for that at that time. So I think the talk about delaying it another cycle might be something you might want to put on it, but at the time, you said it needs to be made now or not at all, because we are allegedly running out of time. We still don't know when the unitary stuff will kick in, and when decisions we can take are no longer possible to take because of the SEO and the process we're going through. So I just want to make the point to you, Leslie, that any help you can do on this, I'm meeting the Tuesday next week, and any help the press can do to put pressure on the NHS, that facilities like this, which saves the NHS money, creates capacity for patients to be dealt with in the right way, should actually be encouraged. And we've done this before actually, on the doctor's surgery in Brixworth, just to let you know how we got there in the end. We actually went to the Secretary of State and we went to the Simon Stevens. And then, because all we felt at that time was this block. And what the Brixworth story was, developers on the Blackman Housing Growth in Brixworth were willing to build a brand new surgery. So why did we miss that opportunity? But we had this brick wall. So to get around it, we had to go that high up the chain. I'm not suggesting we do that about this, but I would ask Councillor Waldo, or anybody else, the press can put pressure on here, is to raise the issue about what the NHS is doing to help themselves look after our patients, people in this area, and beyond maybe. And Reach for Health, its 25-year track record, it's done a very, very good job and has the ability to expand further. And I think this is an opportunity, Chairman, we should not miss. And obviously, we see what the vote is in a minute. It's a free vote, by the way, tonight. We're not going to whip on this. We see how people feel. And I just feel we should do more to try and get more money from outside. What I would want to do is delay the process. We should do that alongside. I would support doing this tonight. But I will work tirelessly behind the scenes to try and do my best. And I think others can do the same. If they've got influence like you, maybe Councillor Waldo, that would be very helpful to us all. Thank you very much.
Our Chief Executive would like to clarify what was said.
Can I just, I'm hopeful this will be helpful for you all. What I said at the last meeting, the strategy group meeting, was that we are, with all the projects we're dealing with, let's put this one aside for a moment, with all the projects we're dealing with, we have probably a window of opportunity that's open to us till around about the 31st of March. Now the government last week confirmed they are still working to the original timetable. So this whole idea that this is slipped and therefore there's more time, there isn't more time. The time we have is the time we have. And if you start trying to extend that period, I think you could run into real difficulties. Not just with this as a project, but with everything. So hence the debate we've had on the cinema and the library. If you don't make a decision, get it into your programme, the chances are the guillotine will fall and we will not shoot them.
Yes. When it's late.
The guillotine will fall and we will be under the influence at that point of a shadow authority which may not see this or any of those schemes as high priority.
Thank you.
The important thing for me, just as you've debated and have agreed the cinema and library, the cinema will come back to you as a full business case. So this is trying to be helpful to Councillor Morgan in the sense he's asked for more time. Just as the cinema will come back to you as a full business case, so will this. This is the standard procedure. You get it into your programme, and as the scheme develops, you bring it back for ultimate sign-off at this meeting, i.e. Council in February, in that case, for the full business case to be approved. Now, this is not unusual. This happens in every major scheme that we do. So I've just referred to the one earlier. The cinema will come back to you as members with a full business case. This, if you approve it tonight, will come back to you as a full business case. And that's the clarity.
Councillor here, could you...
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to sum up. We've had the amendment on the whether we defer, and that's not an option. And we said time is of an essence, and we need a decision now to move this forward. Like my fellow councillor, Councillor Auger, I have no problem with people standing up and opposing it. That's democracy. But when we talk about democracy, I would refer to a speech that Winston Churchill made many, many years ago, which has always stood in my mind. That we're elected to do the best for our residents, and he said, what is democracy? Democracy is an expression of support for the voice of the people. And this is what we've got here tonight. An expression of support for the voice of the people to bring Reach for Health to fruition. Now, I mentioned earlier that this was an opportunity. Not because I particularly want to be popular. I might make myself unpopular tonight with one or two of you. If so, that's hard luck. Because quite frankly, I support it because it is right. It is right for the residents of Daventry, it's right for the patients, and right to leave a legacy of this nature now while we've got the opportunity. And when this goes through, the onus is then on Reach for Health to progress it and for it to succeed. So I would say to you all, this is an opportunity, we mustn't waste it. Let's now go to the vote, and I look forward to getting your support for something that is very, very worthwhile. Thank you.
So, and you have Councillor Miller, seconder.
Oh, the seconder,
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So we go to the vote now for the recommendation. It is carried. Thank you. SG 59 1801. Electric plumbing, making a we make stop here. Sorry. We will wait till
do the best
Just check it.
Thank you. So, now, SG 591801, electric plug-in vehicle infrastructure plan 1823. Councillor Gifford. Yes, nobody wants you to speak tonight.
Yeah, you're agreeing it before I've spoken.
Right, I'll be very quick because this is not a new report, it's a refresh of an old report. So could I ask that you approve that the electric plug-in vehicle infrastructure plan 2018-23 be approved, and that the council continue to lobby government to ensure due priority is given to increasing availability of infrastructure and improving ease of access to customers to charge.
Do you have a second? Councillor Green. Do we agree with
Agree. Wonderful.
So, SG 601801, Gambling Act 2005, Policy Statement 3 yearly review. Councillor Walker.
Yes, I'll try and keep my hour speech down to half an hour.
5 minutes.
Every 3 years, colleagues, the Gambling Act 2005 requires the licensing authority to review and publish a statement of principle that they intend to apply when exercising related functions. And also we have a responsibility with regard to determine whether we would want a provision of a casino or not. This paper has been debated in Strategy. You will see that we would like you to recommend that the Council adopt the Gambling Act 2005 policy statement as shown at Appendix 1, and that the Council adopts a no casino resolution under Section 166 of the Gambling Act 2005. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have a second? Councillor Morgan.
Chair, seconded. No further comments. I've been poached and gatekeeper. Thank you, Chair.
Do we agree?
Agreed.
Now, it's put to you, it's not, sorry. So we might have one more. SG 611801, proposed improvement to athletic facility at Daventry Sport Park. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I hope this one's going to be a bit easier than the You've got the recommendations in front of you. The recommendations are that subject to a suitable agreement, up to £450,000 is granted to the sports trust as per option 3 in the report. The funding should be taken from the Strategic Infrastructure Fund and then repaid from sewer fund. The trust is a registered charity and requested help in carrying out improvements such as the completion of the running track and replacing the porter cabin which currently serves as a clubhouse. And one of the aims is also to provide better access for the disabled, which I think would be very well. I have been involved in my portfolio role and helping with the Empowering Council scheme, which is run by the County Council. I fully support this. The benefits are there for everyone to see, both to the club and the community, and will help achieve our aim of the word that we've been using all through the night of leaving a legacy to the sporting and community in general before unitary takes place. I therefore ask each and every one of you to support this. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have a second now? David James. Do we agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I was too quick.
I'd just like to ask a couple of questions on this. Because it strikes me that looking at one report that was presented to the strategy group a few weeks ago, it seemed exceptionally thin in terms of information and figures. The 450,000, I understand, is partly going to be the completing a circuit of a running track, and partly to improve facilities and changing rooms and so on. I don't have the report in front of me. There was no breakdown of how that 450 was going to be spent. There were no figures at all there about the number of people who regularly would use a running track. I accept that the numbers might be limited at the moment and you can only run backwards and forwards. How many more people would you expect to run if they could run around in circles? It's these sort of numbers that, we've been discussing this with Richard Health, we're discussing it with other things, and, let's actually have some facts about the numbers that we expect that this amount of money is going to benefit.
Councillor Dowd.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I thought this was a little bit odd, because I think this was the item, was it before the Reach for Health in the strategy? I read the report, and it came to the conclusions, okay, fair enough, fine. Then I read the Reach for Health one, and I thought, how on earth have they found that? That aside, though, as we mentioned in Reach for Health, people are concerned about the funding. Why do we not have any external funding on this one? Why are we using our own resources? Can we not seek funding from the Sports Council or, I don't know, Athletics Association or somebody? Bearing in mind we're sort of up against it, I think, with all our commitments.
So do we go, Councillor Ian, would you like to clarify?
My understanding, Chair, is that this is only part funding, am I correct? That they are finding extra funds themselves as well?
Our officer will reply.
Yeah, through you, Chairman. This is the latest phase of a series of improvements at this facility. The previous phases, they definitely got match funding. They put a good case together. If members would like me to share more information about the robust business case, I'm happy to do so. It was a very high-scoring application.
And when we talk about the facility itself, the fact is that they enter several competitions, but they can never have home competitions because of the track. They travel away, which is tremendous cost to them. And they have a waiting list there, and if you go down 2 rounds I've been, you will see that it is very, very well used. So I think the potential there is a potential to provide an excellent facility for the people of Daventry and a running track that I believe will be fully and well used. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Brown, you wanted to add something?
Yes, Madam Chairman, just a question more than anything. The £450,000 funding is contingent upon completion of a suitable agreement. What would constitute a suitable agreement, please?
Going back to the officer's thoughts on that one, Chair.
Chairman, we have an agreement with the Montford Football Club for the article pictured there, which is quite detailed and quite robust. The report actually refers to using that as a model in this case. It's a little bit different because the council's a freeholder here, so we've got a bit more control anyway. But essentially it's an agreement to make sure that the money is used to the purpose which is intended, and the facility is then looked after and is made available for the purpose for which the money is given.
Thank you.
So now we go to the vote. To accept the recommendation? Objection? No objection. So now it's 9:15.
Point of information, Chairman. I'd like to point out that there are some items on the agenda still to be reached, which are essential that they are determined this evening. There is no putting them on. I think members should know that before they make the decision on whether or not to extend this meeting.
Proposed we continue, Chairman.
Seconded.
All those in agreement? Sure. Agreed.
Sorry. He is at Northampton County Council.
He's just getting his own back.
Yes. I'm not so
sorry, Chairman.
Thank you so much.
Trying to help you.
Thank So SG 621801, Badby Parish Neighbourhood Development Plan. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief, but it is important. This neighbourhood development plan, in common with some others, which we'll hear about in a moment, has been through all of the stages to reach a point where it is has been examined, and the examiner noted the effectiveness of our community consultation, which is good. The examiner, she actually, did not recommend any major modifications to the plan. Did make a comment about the village confines recommended by the examiner differed from those proposed by officers, and the business manager advised that if the plan was agreed at referendum, then Part 2 local plan would require a minor modification to the policies map. And I would like to therefore ask Council to agree that the significant progress in making the neighbourhood development plan by Badby community be noted and welcomed, that examiners' recommended modifications in respect to that plan are accepted, that the examiner's recommendation that the plan as modified in accordance with that recommendation should proceed to a referendum of voters within the parish of Badby on the 24th of January is the proposed date for that referendum, Chairman. That subject to those items 2 and 3, that the proposed decision statement set out in the report be approved, and that the cost of the referendum be met with the earmark reserved for neighbourhood development planning. Those are the asks of this meeting, Chairman. It is important, and it is important that we note that an awful lot of effort goes into the preparation of a neighbourhood development plan, and it's really quite satisfying and pleasing that the examiner made only positive comments about this plan and the way in which it has been conducted and consulted on.
And I would like to second this and I'd like to just say I'm pleased to see that we're Badby Parish Council's comments were taken in.
Thank you. So, do we accept the recommendation?
Agree.
Against? No. SG 621802. Hillsborough Neighbourhood Development Plan. Councillor Chandler again.
Thank you, Chairman.
We have a run.
This, again, is the result of a lot of hard work on the part of a lot of people, including staff here and members of the community. The neighbourhood development plan, following consultation and suitable modification at that stage, has been examined, and the examiner has recommended that it goes to referendum. And so the recommendations are very similar to those just passed for Badby, except that the word Guilsborough should be substituted. So just briefly, that we note and welcome the considerable progress in making the neighbourhood development plan. I think actually preparing is a better word than making, because making a development plan has special meaning later on. That the examiner's recommended modifications be accepted. Further minor modifications might be necessary as a result of textual changes. That the development plan as modified proceed to referendum again on the 24th of January is a proposed date. That Guilsborough neighbourhood area be the people who vote, and that the decision statement set out in the report be approved subject to any necessary factual alterations, which is unlikely, and that the cost of the referendum be met from the earmark reserved for neighbourhood planning. Those are the asks of this meeting, Chairman.
Councillor Meyer, second. Good. Do we agree with the recommendation?
Agree.
Against? No one. Thank you. SG 621803, Western Neighbourhood Development Plan. Councillor Chandler again.
Thank you, Chairman. I think It's important to note for the Welton Neighbourhood Development Plan, again, yes, a lot of hard work has been done, proper and effective consultation has been undertaken, and everybody involved is to be congratulated, and that's part of one of my recommendations to Council. But I think I would like to highlight that the referendum area proposed by the examiner leaves out the Micklewell Park development extension, which lies within Welton Parish, and this is different from the parish boundary, which was the original boundary described by the producers of this development, the neighbourhood development plan. But it is worth noting that there are no residential properties within the area that is to be excluded because they haven't been built yet, and so it makes no practical difference to the outcome of the referendum, so I don't think we should argue with that. And therefore I would ask this committee, this council, to approve that significant progress in producing this neighbourhood development plan be noted and welcomed, that the examiner's recommended modifications be accepted, that the examiner's recommendation that it go to referendum on the 24th of January be accepted, that the proposed decision statement set out and be approved, subject to any necessary factual alterations, and that the cost of the referendum be met from earmarked reserves and neighbourhood planning. Those are the asks of this council, Chairman.
Councillor Osborne, do we accept the recommendation? Agreed. Against? SG 621803, Welton Neighbourhood Development Plan. Councillor Chandler again, it's your night after that debate.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's a late night.
This is the conservation area appraisal and management plan and conservation area designation. Broadston already has a conservation area. This is proposed review and revision of that, and it includes small rationalisations, I think we can sensibly call them, where the existing boundary bisected existing plots, which seems rather nonsense. So there's a couple of minor changes in response to the consultation proposed, and those have been reported. The business manager advised that yes, there was a typo in the original list that went to strategy group. We altered that, and so the recommendations here, Chairman, are that the proposed changes to the Broadston Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan in response to representations set out in the report be approved, that further minor editorial changes be made to the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan to reflect the fact that the document will then be in its final adopted form, and that the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan for Broadston be adopted as a supplementary planning document, that the proposed conservation area boundary as set out in the report be designated, and that the local list entries for Broadston set out in the report be agreed, and that further work be undertaken for proposed Article 4 directions for Broadston, and a further report will be presented to Strategy Group in due course. Those are the asks of this council, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor here. Do we accept?
Chair, sorry, may I just point out, could you not look at the but the member for the ward, rather than just looking around? Yeah, his hand up for Welton.
Sorry, because I look at you
and this is patch.
Yes. So could we take me, Councillor Christian? Sorry, I didn't mean to, but you. Sorry. So could we? Agree. Thank you. Against? And I'm terribly sorry, my eyes are now very tired because I suffer of an eye condition and now it's getting worse. So SG 621805, Kilsby Conservation Area Designation, Appraisal and Management Plan. Again, Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another conservation area designation. This is a new conservation area, really, and it went out for consultation, as is our practice and requirement. 9 responses were received in relation to the proposed new designation of a conservation area, and as a result, some properties were removed from the proposed additions to the local list. I would, as this is the last of 3, like to echo my congratulations at Strategy Group to the staff concerned in the work that was carried out in producing these neighbourhood development plans and conservation area appraisals, because it's a considerable amount of work and it's not always met with general approval of the community. And so I am very pleased to report and record that congratulations. So the ask of this council chairman are that the proposed changes to Kilsby Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan in response to representations be approved, that further minor editorial changes be made to reflect the fact that this will now be in its final form, that the area appraisal and management plan for Kilsby be adopted as a supplementary planning document, and that the proposed conservation area as set out in the report be designated, that the local list entries for Kilsby be agreed, and that further work be undertaken for proposed Article 4 directions for Kilsby, and that further report be presented to Strategy Group in due course. Those are the asks of Council Chairman.
So I have 2 seconders, remember, Councillor Lomax and Councillor
the lady.
Second, Councillor Robertson, who are all seconding.
No comment.
So do we agree with the recommendation? Against? No. Now, Councillor Morgan, SG 63-1801, Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy Media Review, 1819.
Thank you, Chair. There's only 2 recommendations here, that the Council's Treasury Management Media Review for 2018-19 be noted, and that the proposed increased levels of counterparty investment be agreed. I'll give you a quick update. So obviously it's the half-year Treasury report, and going back to the strategy on page 240, it's set out the purpose of this, which is what the definition of Treasury management is. I will quote you on that, even though it's nice and late. The management of the local authorities' investment and cash flows, it's banking, money, market and capital market transactions, the effective control of the risks associated with those activities and the pursuit of the optimum performance consistent with those risks. Now, the interesting thing here is, I'd like to point out a couple of things. First of all, is regards at that point in time the council's capital expenditure. It was forecast projected outturn for the end of the year at 11.688 million, which was slightly below where we set it. I'd also like to point out the investment portfolio, also said this in strategy, is 66.5 million, and particularly now the Reach for Health people are going, it's not half as exciting, but that's not all of our money, but we do look after it, and we look after it very well. And I also wanted to point out to you again that we made £140,000 more interest above what we expected to make on that money due to prudent management of it. Really, that's probably all you'd want to hear at this time of night after a fun debate all evening. And please accept those recommendations. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Brown. Do we agree? Against? No. Daventry District Council schedule of council and committee meeting and member training session for 1920.
Agree.
Councillor Brown.
Just a couple of things to note, Madam Chair. This new schedule of meetings does include the additional scrutiny meeting as recommended by Councillor Frenchman's report that came through scrutiny and improvement, and members will also note that we have, I think, 2 meetings scheduled for one out of existence, but I think they're in there purely as contingency in case unitary timetabling slips over.
So, do we agree to schedule?
Agree. You second that.
Seconder. Councillor Morgan?
Chair, I'm seconding no further comments, but it's great to know that Councillor Brown will still doing scrutiny after we've completed the abruptly. So maybe that'll be your last assignment. Or maybe that'll be when you get the assignment papers in, I guess.
Against? Voluntary and community sector grant criteria and scoring change. Councillor Fanda?
No.
Well, Councillor here, sorry. Sorry.
Right, members, you will recall that we agreed to make it easier and more flexible to apply for community grants. And this has happened, the number of applications has increased dramatically. But the criteria, due to an oversight, did not change. And what this paper does, it resolves the item, it seeks to address it. Councillor Orban and I had a meeting with Maria Taylor and Katie Jones, and the revisions are there before you. The criteria and scoring matrix be amended as per Appendix 1. You can see the changes outlined. Some items have been revised with new questions, which is evidence of need, 10 points. And having carried out tests, it becomes more flexible in line with our aims. The guidance documents and application forms are amended and published to reflect the changes. Well, quite frankly, that's common sense. Item 3, that the revised criteria are implemented from the 1st of January to include any applications already received which might have not yet been processed, so that they're waiting your approval tonight. This has been designed to enable the council to support and fund more projects that genuinely meet community needs, which I feel sure you will welcome. And I would add that officers are on hand should you have any queries on this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Audio?
Yeah, I second it, and I welcome and I'm grateful for officers for harmonising the criteria to the view of council with regard to community grants. Thank you very much.
Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not necessarily opposing what is here. I'm just sort of slightly concerned. Assessing a grant application is surely much closer to assessing an English literature exam or a piece of art than it is to marking a maths or an accounts paper. And I just hope that we don't assume that by getting things boiled down to numbers, that somehow we are being more objective, because it is a false objectivity. In any of these scorings, there is always going to be quite a subjective element. And if you think that isn't the case with any of the large, grant-making trusts and the work that they have done in actually looking at the differences that come up when different people actually score different applications, all working from exactly the same sheets. I assume that under each of these, what are listed as the questions, that there's a little bit of narrative explaining what it is that the grant assessor is looking for and what actually qualifies for scores. Not because it makes the outcomes any fairer, because fairer in this sense doesn't actually have a great deal of meaning, but only so that there's a guarantee of more consistency. The only ones that I question are the 3 at the bottom. All the evidence from voluntary sector grant funding is that the organisations that get most of the money are the organisations that are best at making applications. And that is a thing that we have got to be wary of, that there may be very, very deserving causes that miss out because they are administratively and in terms of marketing not quite as hot as others. Now, of course, there is no point in giving money to an organisation with excellent objectives if it is not in a position to actually carry out a project because of its capacity. The way that many would approach this is not to have these last 3, the organisation ability questions included. They're something that is separate. They're a separate set of hurdles that, having determined the scoring, are able to actually do the job. I hope that some of these things will come up. Councillor Brown, I believe, is going to head a past panel of the scrutiny panel looking at voluntary sector funding. I will do that and look at some of these issues, but I hope too that there's got to be recognition that while there can be, there is a mechanical element to this, you go through and you tick the boxes and see what the scores are, but at the same time, there is an element of judgment. And that means an element of political judgment, not party political judgment, but it is making a judgment. And I believe that this council, like many other councils, most other councils, do that by accepting that when it comes to grants above a certain size, or perhaps grants that for some reason are just borderline, do they qualify or do they not? But for these sorts of things, the recommendation that comes from this sort of scoring scheme is made by the officers that there is some input from at least some elected members to determine whether or not that they sign it off.
Our officer would like to reply to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that community monetary sector grants are not just recommended for funding based on the funding scoring that you're seeing there. That is one element. The full details are available on the website. We tell people very clearly what we're looking for, and there are very detailed guidance notes to help people through that process, as well as them being able to access help and advice from different officers in the team. So there's if you go on to page 2 of the guidance notes, you can see very clearly that it's not just a black and white funding scores on the doors. There is lots more information there about how that fits in, whatever funding has happened in that area, and all sorts of things. So it is not just, that is not the only criteria, but when we looked at it following the strategy group debate, we realised that actually these criteria, it needs to be looked at to broaden the range of grants that we could be awarding in line with what members were telling us.
Councillor Schaefer.
No, thank you.
Councillor Gifford.
Okay, I've got a thank you and a comment and a question. So first of all, thank you for officers and for Councillor Hills and Councillor Auger, who led on the original task panel on this. I'm bringing a paper straight to Council. That is very much appreciated from, I'm sure, all our organisations that will be applying. Next is a comment. Yes, I was going to confirm what Maria has just said, that having filled in these applications, that there is another set of criteria besides these. The only thing I would ask is that, as you say, they are subjective. So, for example, where it's organisation ability, so if a parish council or a charity or something applies, then they don't have, all the high quality marks. But if they're applying in partnership with the county or something like that who have, then I'm sure acknowledgement will be given to the fact that they've got the mark. And my last question is, normally when we make decisions in this council, the criteria, or the decision is the decision and it's implemented straight away. The third part is that the revised criteria matrix is implemented on the 1st of January. Can I ask why this has got a date in the future as opposed to other things like this evening where readings where it is taken on the evening?
I think the officer will be able to answer.
Thank you, Chairman. We have arranged, I think there's about 15 or 16 applications that we were in the process of dealing with when this was discussed at the strategy group. We were due to be reporting those grant applications through to S&T in December. As soon as it was identified at strategy group that some changes were to be made, we put that on hold, and when we have, subject to this being agreed tonight, we will go back to the existing applicants. They'll have one more question to answer, which is the new one, the new criteria, if that's what's agreed, and we will rescore and re-look at all of those applications, and they will be reported to next month's senior management team meeting along with any new applications. So the reason for implementing it next month, to be very clear, is that we didn't do it this month, and this is in order to be nice and fair. The other advantage of changing the criteria as recommended is that the 15 or so people who have already made applications haven't got to do the whole thing again, they've just got to answer one more question.
Do we agree with the report?
Agree.
Strategy planning issue, Councillor Chandler. Your items that could not be
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I hope that members are still awake and can hear me. This refers to our Settlements and Countryside Part 2 local plan, and it is possibly one of the most important documents that this council will have to deal with between now and the end of its useful life. It may be more important than some it's agreed already in the past. Members will remember, or may have learned if they're very new to us, that the West Northamptonshire Joint Course Strategy Local Plan Part 1 was adopted by the Joint Strategic Planning Committee on the 15th of December 2014, which is 4 years ago next weekend, and it forms part of the development plan for the district. And this enables us to claim successfully that we have an up-to-date plan in place that's required by National Planning Policy Framework. But it does set out in that plan that it doesn't provide all of the necessary policies. We are still relying on some saved policies from earlier plans at a Part 2 level. And I would just remind members that the date on those saved policies is 1997, which tends to raise an eyebrow if you go to appeal, because the appellant will say that these plans are 20 years old, they must be out of date. So nevertheless, that's what we rely on at the moment. And so as soon as the core strategy was passed, work began on developing a new Part 2 local plan. And an awful lot of work has gone into those 4 years. It has involved a lot of engagement with lots of stakeholders, including parish and town councils, communities. We have produced a consultation on issues and options that happened in early 2016. An emerging draft plan was then produced at the end of 2017, and that was consulted on. As a result of that, the responses to that, the proposed submission version was developed further, and that was reported to Strategy Group in July and published for consultation, representation in the period August to the beginning of October. These representations have now been considered, and the proposal is that the plan be submitted for examination. I just wanted to highlight a few points in the paper in front of you, Chairman. I'm sure everybody will have studied it in detail. I do want to keep underlining the significant amount of work that's gone into the production of this plan and the extent of the community engagement and stakeholder engagement and the consultation. A lot of evidence has been gathered and recorded, and all of the evidence-based documents are available on the Council's website, and they've been organised into a structured library to assist the examination of the plan at a later date. The submission consultation ran from the 13th of August till the 5th of October, and everybody that we know about on our consultation database was informed by email or letter. There was lots of publicity on our website, press releases, posters, social media posts. I think we did our best to make sure that people knew what was going on. So I'm not very sympathetic to people who claim that they didn't know what was going on. I don't meet many, but I do meet one occasionally. We held public exhibitions. I managed to get to most of them, and hard copies of the plan have been available in libraries and council offices, and parish councils have a copy. And I know from the 8 parishes that I represent that those copies were looked at by all interested parties locally. So there has been a lot of local interest in this plan because it's such an important document. 278 representations were received, which is a goodly response, I think. 97 respondents, so some of them responded on a number of points. Broadly, the points raised in this consultation were the same as the ones raised in the earlier consultation, which means that people were hoping to have another bite at the cherry if they hadn't managed to persuade everybody to change the plan in accordance with their earlier thoughts. Some of the points that we had to consider was, for example, legal compliance. The examiner will be very interested in that. Does the plan comply with all the legal requirements? And some matters were raised by respondents as legal compliance matters, but actually they're not legal compliance matters. They're actually about planning judgments, but again, they were keen, and I'll tell you why in a moment, to get their point across. The duty to cooperate is vital. Remind members that the duty to cooperate is not a duty to agree, but you do have to show that you have cooperated and consulted with important stakeholders. South Northamptonshire Council, at our emerging draft stage, raised an objection that they didn't think that we had a suitable policy for dealing with under-delivery in the Northampton-related development area, the NRDA, but we responded to that objection, and it's important to note that in their own proposed submission local plan, they have not included a policy such as the one they were trying to make us include, and they have effectively withdrawn their objection. The delivery issue does remain important. There is a local development scheme to work on that, and that was adopted by the Council on the 4th of October, so all partner councils have adopted it, so that shows some commitment to the need to get on and build the houses that we've said we are going to build. We have also developed with our neighbours SNC and NBC a statement of common ground, or that's in the process of production, which is again encouraging and should be available as evidence for the examination of our local plan. Various people have suggested that because their earlier objections didn't result in changes to the plan, therefore we had failed in our duty to cooperate, but I mean that's a feeble argument. Regarding matters of soundness, the principal issues raised related to housing employment and proposed green wedge and special landscape area. I'll just briefly look at some of those. Housing, developers were very interested in wanting us to increase our allocation of housing because they want to build houses. They want to build them in places where they can sell them for a bigger profit, and so they wanted us to change our view on rural development in rural areas, which is quite adequately addressed in the Part 1 plan, the core strategy in any case, specifically through policy R1 is the one that members of the planning committee are well familiar with. Site promoters therefore kept going on about how things needed to be changed in their favour, and I'm sure you will all have read the 278 responses and noted that, and you might have noted very great similarity in the wording of some of those responses from developers. I think they were passing them around and saying send in one of these. There were some comments even objections about the proposed settlement hierarchy. We discussed that thoroughly throughout the process, and we can demonstrate that the approach used to establish that hierarchy is robust, and so the established hierarchy is sound. There is evidence that there is still a lack of clear understanding amongst people at all levels as to exactly the significance of that hierarchy, but changing it at this stage would be not a good idea, and I'll explain why that is in a moment. We received representations about employment development. We've not found evidence to justify any of the changes in that, but of course, as with all planning matters, if somebody wants to stick in a planning application at any time on any piece of land, they're entitled to do that, and it will receive due consideration in any case. Historic England, we're a bit worried about burnt walls, scheduled monument and its setting, but we're working at constructively addressing these concerns is the wording that we've used, which I think is a nice way of putting it. Green wedge, there have been people arguing against green wedge or the extent of green wedge rather than the principle of it, but we've got evidence to justify those decisions again, and it's positively worded and would not prejudice assessment of options, the consideration of Northampton's longer term growth in what is now the joint core strategy is due for review and possible revision in the near future. In fact, we've already started on that, but of course it will then become the West Northamptonshire joint plan, or strategic plan, because the Joint Strategic Planning Committee was disposed of on the 1st of January this year. There were discussions about special landscape area. Some of those were obviously fundamentally flawed in they showed a failure to understand the exact significance of designation special landscape area, and we believe that the proposed designation is sound and based on robust evidence, which we're happy to share. So, and there is in place an infrastructure delivery schedule which is being updated. So we believe that there have been no issues raised at this stage which would require alterations of the plan. It is important that members understand, Chairman, that we're up against a deadline here, and the significance of that deadline cannot be overestimated. The new National Planning Policy Framework was published on the 24th of July this year, and the government very kindly said that anybody who's submitting a plan for examination within the next 6 months can have it examined according to the old NPPF, because otherwise they'd have to redo their plan, and that's not fair. But after the 24th of January, if you submit, it won't count. It'll have to be judged against the new NPPF, which in our case would mean completely revising our Part 2 Settlements and Countryside Local Plan. That would involve an awful lot of work and an awful lot of consultation. That would take so much time that it wouldn't be over before this council disappears and we become part of a unitary authority. We've already heard this evening in different contexts that when we become a unitary authority, this council will no longer have supreme authority over decisions that affect its area and its people. Therefore, it's very important that this plan should be approved tonight for submission to the Secretary of State. Once that happens,
Could we do it? Because you cannot see, but I can.
I can see, but it's important that people understand it.
Believe us.
So, carry on and please.
I will wind up, Chairman.
Thank you so much.
When we submit to the Secretary of State, it will go to the planning inspectorate for an inspector to carry out an examination. This will involve an examination in public, a hearing, and there will be a further opportunity for people to attend that hearing and make representations, and we might suggest minor modifications during the course of that examination as a result of people's representations, and following the examination on the team, we already gave delegated authority to officers to carry out, add or amend a schedule of modifications in order to make it capable of adoption. I hope, Chairman, that tonight we can agree to submit this plan to the Secretary of State for examination, and that the examination will proceed early next year, and that we will be in a position to adopt this plan before the end of next calendar year.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, not just a straight verbal one. I'm normally jumping quick and go agreed and let's go home, but I do have to say a couple of sentences. For those councillors that don't know about this group, there's a group of councillors that meet every few weeks, along with about 6 officers, 6 councillors, and they've been doing so for several years. And they've been involved in this plan for quite a time now. They're a dedicated bunch, led by the chairman who just heard. Okay, he went on a bit tonight, but his nickname is God. His knowledge is absolutely brilliant, and he is good. And I'd like it recorded that not only thank the chairman, but also the members of that group who have been brilliant. The officers, we've got 2 sitting here, they must have better things to do than sit here and listen to this lot. But 2 policy officers sitting here, and the dedicated bunch of policy officers that come to those meetings every few weeks for the past several years. So thank you, and willingly second it, Chairman.
Councillor Ritchie, I hope it will be... Yes.
A brief point. I mean,
thank you.
I think whatever we think of this document, there are many of us who must be hugely thankful that we didn't need to wade through that amount of data. From the size of it, from the number of words, the number of pages that are there, I can only assume that Councillor Chandler actually wrote it himself, if he writes this. My little concern is the number of representations. 278 actually only came from 97 respondents. That's a little bit better than 1/10 of 1% of the people of the district. And even if I say 97, if you look at it, I have looked at a lot of the pages by certain sections, but simply looking through, it is clear that a great majority of the respondents were not individuals, but agencies working on behalf of developers. And it would be interesting to have a breakdown of that 97 as to how many were real people and how many were effectively local lobbyists trying to get changes for our clients. It would be interesting to have that breakdown. Now, of course, even if it were the case that we had 97 residents who would respond, that would still be exceptionally disappointing. I have great sympathy for those who perhaps have written the thing, who organised the consultations of these huge consultation documents. There's no point as a councillor turning round and saying, well, it is actually the fault of our residents for not actually having looked at it. I think it's incumbent on us to see if we can come up with better ways in which we in future engage proactively. I know we say that a periphery consultation, but in something that is as important as this, it is certain that when it comes down to implementation of some parts of this plan, like some of the areas where it's planned that houses are going to be built or there aren't houses at the moment, there are going to be an awful lot more than 97 respondents who will stand up and want to object to it. And I think that we need to find ways. It's not that people are uninterested, it's somehow that we haven't come up with the right way of helping them to express their views on the importance of this.
Just very quickly, moderately. I'd also like to thank Councillor Chandler and his team for great and prodigious work. I just need to register what is likely to be a solitary objection, simply because on page 100 I agree that with the 4 villages mentioned that they've been wrongly classified. That's my thank you.
Thank you. Do we agree? Agree. So we still have a few. Sorry. Against?
Well,
Now, 13. To note the following appointment to appoint Councillor Ian Matthews to corporate government in the place of Councillor Fabian Fraser Allen, and appoint Councillor David Smith to Daventry North Liaison Board in place of Councillor Adam Brown. There is no other business, so declare. But I would like to draw my raffle. It's just 5 prizes.
I have one of those tickets.